Chapter 28:16. Although the power of merit was not as effective against divine realm cultivators as it was against dark creatures, it could still be used. However, it was still capable of being used to attack. It was not inferior to an ordinary king-tier arrow. The moment the virtuous 5-elemental arrow was shot out, Yishang performed the Divine Essence Dragon Lock spell at the same time, binding the Vice City Lord Ling Fian within it. The Dragon Lock formation was basically useless against an elite like the Een Demon King. However, Ling Fian clearly did not have that kind of strength and reaction time. She was bound and directly hit by the 5-elemental arrow. Buzz. The entire void shook. Ling Fian did not even have time to attack before she was killed in an instant. Divine Realm cultivators are so much weaker than the Divine King of the 7 territories. Night Sorrow, who thought that he could only severely injure Ling Fian and not kill her, could not help but sigh. Whether it was in terms of ferocity or actual combat strength, the Divine Realm territories were much weaker than the 7 territories. It was not wrong for them to be suppressed so badly. How could you be so ruthless? Seeing that Night Sorrow had killed Ling Fian in an instant, Luan Qianhe's face was filled with resentment. You wanted to kill me and take the Dominator Divine Weapon. Naturally, I will not show mercy to you. Night Sorrow, who was replying, suddenly felt his pupils constrict. When Luan Qianhe scolded him, he suddenly felt a chill behind him. His second godly soul scanned and realized that it was the old Divine King, Mo Yen, who used a secret technique to sneak into the void and threw out a divine talisman when he was unprepared. When the old Divine King, Mo Yen, appeared on the wall, he looked like he had just barely reached the level of the Divine King. Now, the aura he released was infinitely close to that of an upper-level Divine King. The divine talisman he threw out was at the half-step Dominator level. It was extremely destructive. I didn't expect that you people are not only hypocritical, but also vicious. When the old Divine King threw out the half-step Dominator level divine talisman, Luan Qianhe and Murong Yukong moved at the same time. It had to be said that the three of them cooperated very well. In that instant, Night Sorrow felt like he couldn't even take care of himself. Lord Night Sorrow, be careful. Dragon Sparrow King, who was in the spatial artifact, was quite depressed. However, being anxious was of no help. Yes, be careful. The Fire Phoenix King by the side was also the same. She wished that she could immediately fly out of the vast heaven pagoda and fight alongside Night Sorrow. If nothing unexpected happened, Night Sorrow only needed to defeat the 3 Divine King in front of him to pass the trial. Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King were so nervous that their bodies were trembling. Don't worry. Yishang, who was being sandwiched by 3 people, suddenly calmed down. He used his second god soul to control a portion of his divine origin energy, and used the divine origin dragon locking formation to lock down the half-step sovereign rank formation. He used his first divine soul to execute the virtuous dragon locking array, and locked onto Murong Yukong's attack. At the same time, he held the Tianyun Bao and slammed it towards City Lord Luan Qianhe. He thought, I don't believe that your token can also petrify Tianyun Bao. Thinking of the Samsara Heavenly Halberd being petrified, Night Sorrow, whose anger rose in his heart, wanted to use the Tianyun Bao to directly smash the token in the other party's hand. What a vicious little bastard. City Lord Luan Qianhe, who used the mysterious token to smash Night Sorrow, immediately raised his eyebrows when he saw that Night Sorrow was using the Tianyun Bao as a close-range divine artifact. He was prepared to directly take back the mysterious token, but Night Sorrow's speed was very fast and didn't give him a chance to do so. He used the Tianyun Bao to smash the token. With a clang, the mysterious token lost control and flew to the ground. Oh, is my City Lord's token alright? After that, Luan Qianhe, who originally thought that the token would be smashed by Tianyun Bao, immediately shouted in surprise after recalling the token. His token actually didn't shatter when it collided with the Tianyun Bao. Whether it was Luan Qianhe, Mo Yen, or Murong Yukong, all raised their eyebrows. Murong Yukong guessed. Could it be that the token is a ruler divine artifact? It just hasn't been activated yet? Yes. It took a direct hit from a ruler divine artifact without any damage. The token is definitely a ruler divine artifact. The old Divine King and Mo Yen also speculated in surprise. In fact, they weren't the only ones. Night Sorrow also had the same suspicion. He speculated that even if the token wasn't of the ruler grade, it was still made of the ruler grade material. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to withstand Tianyun Bao's attack without any damage. This isn't good news. While Night Sorrow thought to himself, he couldn't help but think of a way to deal with it. If Luan Qianhe could think of a way to activate the token into a ruler divine artifact, then he could only think of a way to escape. This was something that Night Sorrow wasn't willing to accept. What the hell is going on? Lord Ancestor Phoenix actually left a ruler divine artifact in the checkpoint. How are we going to deal with it? Seeing the situation outside, the Dragon Sparrow King felt his entire heart in a knot, and his brows furrowed. The Fire Phoenix King's expression was also very ugly. If Night Sorrow failed, they would definitely be sent back to the small world that they used to live in. Big Brother Night Sorrow, do your best. Quickly defeat them. Cowling who was at the side, sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow to cheer him on. Quickly defeat them? Hearing Cowling words, Night Sorrow suddenly had an idea and thought to himself, yes. Quickly. Don't give them a chance to study the token. Thinking of this, Night Sorrow immediately poured his blood into Tianyun Bao, completely activating it. The activated Tianyun Bao let out a buzzing sound. After Tianyun Bao was activated, Night Sorrow didn't shoot the arrow of virtue. Instead, he chose to attack at close range again. Night Sorrow used the profound heaven-roaming dragon steps to attack Luan Qianhe. Seeing Night Sorrow use his blood to activate Tianyun Bao, Luan Qianhe's eyes immediately flickered with a fiery light. He coldly snorted and said, "The two of you, help me block him. This city lord seems to have found a way to activate the token. Alright. The two of us will do our best to block him." The old divine king, Mo Yen, revealed a sinister smile. Morong Yukong coldly said, "You are still too inexperienced." At the same time, he used his attack to block Night Sorrow, who was attacking Luan Qianhe. In his opinion, Night Sorrow shouldn't have used his blood to activate Tianyun Bao in front of them, because this would give Luan Qianhe the idea to activate the ruler artifact. Am I inexperienced, or are you guys inexperienced? Do you really think you can stop me? Hearing Morong Yukong's words, Night Sorrow's face revealed a trace of a smile. He suddenly roared out Soft Dragon Roar. This time, he had fused the two souls together to cast the spell. Morong Yukong, who was completely focused on Tianyun Bao, didn't react at all before his spirit sea was shattered by the Soft Dragon Roar. What a powerful spirit attack! Morong Yukong, who only just reacted at this moment, immediately began to shrink his pupils. At this moment, Luan Qianhe was trying to use his blood to activate the City Lord token, and the old divine king, Mo Yen, wasn't fast enough to save him. Chapter 28:17. Morong Yukong, whose soul had been severely injured by Soft Dragon Roar, could still think for a moment, but his entire body seemed to have been paralyzed. Facing Night Sorrow's Tianyun Bao, he had no ability to dodge at all. With City Lord Luan Qianhe and the old divine king Mo Yen helping him, he was directly smashed into pieces by Tianyun Bao. "City Lord, what should we do?" Seeing that Morong Yukong's soul had been destroyed by Night Sorrow's attack, the old divine king Mo Yen immediately panicked. Originally, they had 5 divine kings, but now, only he and City Lord Luan Qianhe were left. The scales of strength had completely tilted. Morong Yukong has been coveting my position for a long time. So what if he's dead? As long as I figure out the mysteries of the ruler artifact, he definitely won't be my match. Let's think of a way to escape back to the city. City Lord Luan Qianhe transmitted his voice to the old divine king Mo Yen, and actually flew in the direction of the city. Even Night Sorrow didn't expect City Lord Luan Qianhe to make such a choice. It was too late to chase after him. At this moment, Night Sorrow's gaze locked onto the old divine king Mo Yen. Mo Yen was the same as him, unable to react at all. Don't kill me." After facing Night Sorrow alone, the old divine king Mo Yen immediately panicked. He immediately begged for mercy. "If I don't kill you, will I let you cooperate with City Lord Luan Qianhe to kill me?" Night Sorrow didn't immediately attack. He looked coldly at Mo Yen and asked in return, I can rely on you and work for you. Heavenly oath. I can make a heavenly oath. The old God King Mo Yin said while bowing and groveling. City Lord Luan Qianhe had discovered that the City Lord token was suspected to be a ruler artifact, so he had ignored him and fled back to the city. This made Mo Yin very angry. While he was angry, he who was facing Night Sorrow and the ruler artifact alone was terrified. I'll ask you a few questions. If your answers satisfy me, I'll accept you. Otherwise, you'll end up like everyone else. Yi Shang said coldly. Then he asked, tell me how to leave this place. If you want to leave this place, which means you'll have to pass the trial, you'll need the City Lord's token. Use it to activate the City Lord's mansion's formation. The old divine King Mo Yin cupped his fists respectfully and replied. So that City Lord token has such an important function. Fortunately, it's sturdy enough. Otherwise, I would have smashed it with the Tianyan Bao. Hearing the old divine King Mo Yan's words, Night Sorrow felt a lingering fear. Fortunately, the City Lord token was sturdy enough. Yes, that City Lord token is something that Milord left behind. Not only is it the key to leave, but it can also control everything in the city. Mo Yen spoke again. If you want to leave, you have to find a way to get the City Lord token. Tell me about the situation in the city, as well as the distribution of the formations. Yi Shang continued. Night Sorrow was quite satisfied with the old divine King Mo Yan's explanation, and didn't attack him anymore. Mo Yan could sense that Night Sorrow's killing intent was gradually weakening, and his expression relaxed a little. He said, the defensive formation is the Black Tortoise Grand Guardian formation. As for the city, there's a killing formation whose name I don't know, but it's extremely terrifying. As for the city, there are no other divine king. Black Tortoise Grand Guardian formation? How can this formation be broken? Night Sorrow asked. The City Lord token was the key to passing the trial, and it might be a ruler's artifact. He didn't want to give City Lord Luan Qianhe too much time to research it. He wanted to break the formation as soon as possible. The key to breaking the formation is the City Lord token in Luan Qianhe's hands. It's very difficult to use other methods to break the formation. Otherwise, the 7 territories wouldn't have been able to break the formation after so many years, Mo Yen explained. If I hadn't appeared, they would have already broken the formation. However, I can't do the same thing as them. The 7 territories had to use the power of the 7 origins to break the formation. Although Night Sorrow had Tianyan Bao, he couldn't do that. Other than that, we can only wait for Luan Qianhe to come out himself, Mo Yen said. I'm quite satisfied with your answer. Make the oath. After that, Night Sorrow asked the old divine King Mo Yen some more. After obtaining more useful information, he gave him a chance to make the oath. Okay. I, Mo Yen, swear that from now on. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, the old divine King Mo Yen made the heavenly Tao oath. At this moment, Night Sorrow opened the sea serpent eye and looked at Mo Yen for a while. You clearly don't look like an old man. Why did you disguise yourself like this? Lord Night Sorrow, you saw through it? Mo Yen, who had already made an oath to join Night Sorrow, heard Night Sorrow's question. He immediately tore off a mask from his face and said, this is one of the best masks in the world. I didn't expect Lord Night Sorrow to see through it. After tearing off the mask, Mo Yen instantly changed from an old man to an extremely handsome man. It seemed that he was no longer the so-called old divine king. What a handsome man. Although the Dragon Sparrow King in the Clear Heaven Pagoda was a male cultivator, he couldn't help but exclaim when he saw Mo Yan's face. Mo Yan's face was too handsome. It could be described as devastatingly beautiful. It's just skin. In the world of cultivators, strength still speaks. It's useless to be good-looking. Although Fire Phoenix was a female cultivator, her reaction was extremely cold. How delightful. Dragon Sparrow King smiled. And then he sent a voice transmission to Yi Shang. Lord Yi Shang, I have an idea. What idea? Tell me. Night Sorrow sent a voice transmission to Dragon Sparrow King. Didn't Lord Night Sorrow want to enter the city? You can use this mask as a disguise and enter with Mo Yan's identity. Dragon Sparrow King continued to send a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. After he finished speaking, he explained. As long as the aura is disguised well, Even Luan Qianhe won't be able to find any clues. The idea is good, but Luan Qianhe threw Mo Yin outside. This is considered a falling out. If I pretend to be Mo Yin, he won't believe me. After all, in his opinion, if Mo Yin isn't, then he must have already joined me. Night Sorrow said. He felt that Dragon Sparrow King's suggestion was somewhat interesting. However, it wouldn't be easy to realize because Luan Qianhe was definitely not a fool. Some things would be understood after some thought. Following that, Night Sorrow, Dragon Sparrow King, and Fire Phoenix King secretly studied it, and felt that this method didn't make sense. Because when Mo Yin faced him, other than surrendering, there was no way for him to escape unscathed. Night Sorrow didn't understand at all and asked Mo Yin, "If I use your mask and pretend to be you, can I sneak into the city? Pretend to be my old divine king?" Mo Yin pondered for a moment and continued, "Logically speaking, Luan Qianhe isn't that stupid and won't be fooled so easily. However, this matter is indeed possible." Chapter 28:18. If Luan Qianhe manages to figure out the secret of the city leader's token, he will not allow anyone to enter. Hence, he will not open the teleportation array. Mo Yin said firmly before he continued. "However, there are other ways to enter the city. Don't keep me in suspense. Tell me what is going on." Night Sorrow scolded Mo Yin as he was trying to show off. Hearing this, Mo Yin immediately replied fearfully, "It's like this. The teleportation array in the city will not be opened. There is another way to enter the city. That is through a teleportation array. This is a secret that even Luan Qianhe does not know about. However, I happen to know about it." "Oh, you can enter the city through the teleportation array?" Night Sorrow asked curiously. "Yes. This teleportation array is located in the main city of the realm of the gods. It has been destroyed. However, as long as it is repaired, you can enter the city." Mo Yin explained and continued. "The main city is located in the heavenly diabolism territory. I know where it is. Bring me there." Night Sorrow said immediately after hearing Mo Yin's words. "Yes, Lord Night Sorrow." Mo Yin, who had returned to his original appearance, had disguised his voice as an old man when he spoke. Now he was slowly recovering. Following Mo Yin's lead, Night Sorrow arrived at the main city of the realm of the gods. At this time, the 7 origins of the heavenly diabolism territory had all been destroyed. There were no more powerful creatures in the heavenly diabolism territory. Night Sorrow did not kill these evil creatures. When he arrived at the teleportation array, he realized that it was not too badly damaged. However, the heavenly diabolism tribe had not repaired it. In the next few days, Night Sorrow and Mo Yin searched for materials to repair the teleportation array in the small world. Finally, after 7 days, the teleportation array was successfully repaired. Although the teleportation array has been repaired, you have to confirm your identity before you can enter it. Therefore, Lord Night Sorrow, you have to disguise yourself as the old me," Mo Yin said immediately after the teleportation array was repaired. "All right. Cooperate with me." Night Sorrow understood Mo Yin's intentions and wanted his help. In the end, his face, figure, and aura were all transformed into his former appearance. He should be able to pass the test. After helping Night Sorrow dress up, Mo Yin looked around confidently and said, "This teleportation formation will teleport you to the City Lord's mansion. Lord Night Sorrow, this is all I can help you with. You've done well enough. Wait for my news," Night Sorrow said. Although Mo Yin had pledged allegiance to him, he was not prepared to let him help him fight against Luan Qianhe. After all, he had worked with Luan Qianhe for many years. "Good. Mo Yin will wait here for Lord Night Sorrow." Mo Yin understood what Night Sorrow meant and nodded gratefully. Then Night Sorrow activated the teleportation portal under Mo Yin's watchful gaze. A moment later, Night Sorrow appeared in a spacious hall. After adapting for a while, Night Sorrow discovered that there were no arrays in the hall. He immediately began to look for the exit. Walking out of the hall, Night Sorrow discovered that he had indeed appeared in the city. However, it was not like Mo Yin said, appearing in the City Lord's mansion. The atmosphere in the city at this time was rather heavy. There were very few cultivators on the streets, and most of them were at the Feather God realm. Those with stronger strength might have all had their energy absorbed by Luan Qianhe and are recuperating. Seeing the safe situation, Knight Sorrow quickly reacted to what was going on. Ignoring these, he immediately used Divine Soul Power to investigate. After finding the City Lord's mansion, he immediately rushed over. Arriving in front of the City Lord's mansion, Knight Sorrow discovered that there were no guards in front of the City Lord's mansion. Could it be that all the guards' energy was absorbed? In the process of walking in, Knight Sorrow muttered doubtfully. The Fire Phoenix King in the vast heaven pagoda also said curiously, "The City Lord's mansion that is like a group of palaces actually doesn't have a single guard. This is indeed a little strange." It is a little strange. Wait for me to investigate properly. Standing outside the City Lord's mansion, Knight Sorrow did not enter immediately. Instead, he once again unleashed Divine Soul Power and investigated. With this investigation, Knight Sorrow was even more puzzled. There was actually no one in the City Lord's mansion. Could it be that the City Lord's mansion has an illusory formation? Thinking up to here, while Knight Sorrow used Divine Soul to investigate, he opened the Sea Serpent's eye and observed carefully. Looking like this, he indeed discovered an illusory formation. After breaking the illusory formation, Knight Sorrow immediately entered a hidden space. Just entering the hidden space, Knight Sorrow smelled a very thick smell of blood. In front of him were 9 tall stone doors. What's the situation? Such a strong smell of blood. The Knight Sorrow who opened the Sea Serpent's eye could not see through the stone doors, but he could smell the smell of blood coming from the tall stone doors. He immediately flew in front of one of the stone doors and smashed the stone door with a palm. With a bang, the stone door suddenly collapsed. The Knight Sorrow who saw the scene before him clearly immediately frowned. While the Fire Phoenix King in the vast heaven pagoda covered Cowling, Er's eyes. Behind the stone doors were actually the skeletons of 10 million people. On these skeletons, there was some flesh remaining, but the vast majority of the flesh already disappeared. The blood on the skeletons had not flowed dry yet. Clearly, the time of their death was not too long ago. Could it be that it was City Lord Luan Qianhe who did these things? Taking in the tragic situation before his eyes, Knight Sorrow immediately flew into a rage. He roared, "Luan Qianhe, you come out for me." When Knight Sorrow roared these words, he directly shook off the mask on his face, recovering to his original appearance. However, after Knight Sorrow roared, Luan Qianhe did not appear. He checked all the stone doors in front of him one by one, and discovered that the tragic scene inside each stone door was the same. The number of dead cultivators could be at least 20 million. Their strength was mostly at the high deity level, and there were even some who were Divine Lord level. Deranged, this is really deranged. Taking in the tragic situation before his eyes, even the Dragon Sparrow King in the vast heaven pagoda could not resist cursing out. The Fire Phoenix King who covered Cowling, Er's eyes also had anger surging on her face as she said, "When Divine Realm cultivators become evil, they are simply even more terrifying than foreign races. The one who did this must be Luan Qianhe. The others do not have this kind of ability." Knight Sorrow finished inspecting the stone doors in front of him, judged for a bit, and continued, "Doing such an evil thing, there must be a motive. At this time, Luan Qianhe's strength must have increased substantially, but no matter how strong he is, I will directly kill him." Walking out of this hidden small world, Knight Sorrow started to continue searching for Luan Qianhe in the city. Except, virtually searching the entire city, he also did not find the other party's figure. Chapter 28:19. I think it's very likely that there's a secret room in the City Lord's mansion. He plundered so many people's flesh and blood. It's impossible for him to, seeing Knight Sorrow's worry, the Fire Phoenix King in the Clear Sky Pagoda said. Although she came from the Phoenix clan and didn't care much about life and death, Luan Qianhe's evil act of plundering thousands of people's flesh and blood still made her very uncomfortable. And it's very likely. Ancestor Phoenix asked Luan Qianhe to guard this small world. It's impossible for him to use the token to leave this small world. Otherwise, this would be child's play. After the Fire Phoenix King spoke, Knight Sorrow calmed down and judged. That's right. How wise is Ancestor Phoenix? How could he make such a low-level mistake? In my opinion, Yuan Qianhe must be hiding somewhere. Dragon Sparrow King also spoke his thoughts. Ancestor Phoenix was an existence that surpassed the ruler and stood above the entire divine realm. It was impossible for him to give Yuan Qianhe the chance to steal. The problem now is how to find Yuan Qianhe, seize the token, and find the place to leave this world. After thinking quietly for a while, Night Sorrow said. At this point, Night Sorrow's eyes suddenly lit up and said, I understand. Yuan Qianhe is not in the city in front of us. Oh, what do you mean? Dragon Sparrow King immediately asked in puzzlement. The territory of the divine realm was originally very big. Even the original main city is not here. Many important places are probably not in this city. Yuan Qianhe must have gone to other important areas. Night Sorrow, who was following his train of thought, voiced out his conjecture. Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King heard Night Sorrow's speculation and felt that it was very reasonable. Fire Phoenix King asked, Then where are we going to find him? Of course, we'll teleport back to the main city. After seeing Mo Yin, we'll ask him about the important places in the divine realm. Night Sorrow said and brought the clear sky pagoda back to the teleportation array. He used the divine crystal to teleport back to the main city of the divine realm. Mo Yin, Yuan Qianhe didn't appear, right? Night Sorrow asked in a deep voice when he saw Mo Yin waiting near the teleportation array. Nope. Does Lord Night Sorrow mean that Yuan Qianhe is not in the city? Mo Yin asked in confusion when he heard Night Sorrow's question. Yes. I didn't find Yuan Qianhe in the city, but I saw the millions of cultivators whose flesh and blood he plundered. After Night Sorrow said ruthlessly, he looked at Mo Yin and said, There are still some important places in this small world. Quickly bring me there. I suspect that Yuan Qianhe is cultivating somewhere and is plotting something. Let me think. After Mo Yin finished speaking, he pondered for a while and speculated. According to what Lord Night Sorrow said, I'm guessing that Yuan Qianhe is most likely ascending to the place of ascension to search for the secret of the City Lord token. Land of Ascension? Where is that? Upon hearing this unfamiliar name, Night Sorrow asked. The so-called place of ascension is actually the place where the challenger uses the token to leave this world. At this point, Mo Yin apologized. Actually, I should have thought of that long ago. After he finished speaking, he immediately brought Night Sorrow to the place of ascension. When they were close to the place of ascension, Mo Yin reminded, Yuan Qianhe is most likely up ahead. We have to be careful. All right. I will be careful. You be careful too. If you encounter him and don't want to fight, just leave. After Night Sorrow said that, he flew toward the place of ascension. If I encounter him, I will fight alongside Lord Night Sorrow. Mo Yin sighed and said. He did not have a good impression of Yuan Qianhe. On the way here, he had heard that Yuan Qianhe had plundered flesh and blood. Immediately, he was determined to fight. When he was following Yuan Qianhe, Mo Yin did not have any thoughts about doing evil. However, after swearing to follow Night Sorrow, he felt different. It was as if he had been purified by the power of merit. All right. Then we will fight side by side. As long as we defeat Yuan Qianhe and obtain the City Lord token, I will bring you out of this world and return to the real realm of the gods. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, he did not say anything else and quickly headed toward the place of ascension. After getting closer, Night Sorrow saw a broken bridge that reached into the clouds. At the furthest end of the broken bridge, where the bridge was broken, a figure reeking of blood was sitting cross-legged on the ground. The City Lord token was floating above his palms. Yuan Qianhe, it's him. As expected, he reeks of blood. Seeing Yuan Qianhe's figure, Mo Yin immediately recognized him. Sensing the bloody stench on his body, Mo Yin's brows furrowed in anger. After all, in the city, there were soldiers who had fought side by side with them. Now almost all of them had been devoured by Yuan Qianhe and turned into skeletons. Get ready for battle. I will fight him. You just need to wait for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. During the battle with the 5 Divine King, Night Sorrow had experienced some of Mo Yan's techniques and knew that he was good at sneak attacks. After giving these instructions, he took off the Tianyun bow from his back and prepared to shoot an arrow of virtue at Yuan Qianhe. The current Yuan Qianhe, who had slaughtered tens of millions of people, had completely turned into a demon. His body was surrounded by a sea of blood, and was almost like a dark evil creature. He was greatly affected by the power of virtue. Kiki, you are finally here. Wan Qianhe, who had his back to Night Sorrow and Mo Yan, said in a hoarse voice and turned around. Seeing Wan Qianhe's current appearance, both Night Sorrow and Mo Yan were immediately surprised. At this moment, Wan Qianhe's face was completely devoid of flesh and blood. He looked like a skeleton. How did you end up like this? Mo Yan asked in astonishment when he saw Wan Qianhe's appearance. Naturally, I poured all my flesh and blood into the City Lord token. Not only me, but all the cultivators above the high god level in the divine realm have their flesh and blood absorbed by the City Lord token. When Wan Qianhe held up the City Lord token, one could see that his arm was devoid of flesh and blood. It looked very horrifying. At this moment, Night Sorrow and Mo Yan completely sensed that the strong smell of blood came from the City Lord token. At this moment, the City Lord token was no longer golden, but transparent blood red. The strong smell of blood made one's heart palpitate. Wan Qianhe, you actually sacrificed the entire divine realm for a City Lord token. You are simply crazy. Hearing Wan Qianhe's words, Mo Yan's eyes were about to split open. Wan Qianhe's actions were simply outrageous, and went against the laws of nature. Deranged? That's right, he was insane. But it was worth it, all of it was worth it. Wan Qianhe replied with a dry and hoarse voice, and then laughed wildly. Because I've completely figured out the secrets of the City Lord Medallion. The two of you, prepare to become its next sacrifice. Chapter 28:20. Do you think that after absorbing so much flesh and blood, the token in your hand can truly become a sovereign artifact? When Wan Qianhe threw the City Lord token at Night Sorrow, it erupted with shocking blood energy and terrifying energy. However, Night Sorrow could clearly sense that although the power of the City Lord token was terrifying, it was clearly not at the sovereign level. He immediately used the Tianyuan Bao to block it. The City Lord token was still undamaged after being hit by the Tianyuan Bao, but Night Sorrow successfully repelled it and sent it flying far away. Buzz. However, just after Night Sorrow used the City Lord token, a terrifying tremor came from his arm. The terrifying tremor brought with it a huge impact. If it was an ordinary divine king, his arms would have been directly shattered. Only Night Sorrow's body was strong enough to withstand it, but he still suffered some injuries. Humph! I didn't expect you to have some ability. Your body is stronger than most divine kings. You're a talent, but you're blocking my path. You'll be killed today. Wan Qianhe, who withdrew the City Lord token and saw that Night Sorrow was not injured, was very surprised, and coldly ridiculed him. Bastard, die. At this moment, Mo Yan, who had silently sneaked into the void, suddenly stabbed at Wan Qianhe. Mo Yan's sword seemed to come from the depths of the void, and it was impossible to determine its direction. Humph. However, Wan Qianhe did not care about this attack at all. He threw out the City Lord token again. The sword hidden in the void was immediately sucked over by the City Lord token. With a clang, there was a crisp sound. An instant later, the sword turned into a stone sword, and Wan Qianhe used his bone palm to lightly slap it, completely shattering it. The City Lord token can be used like this. Seeing Wan Qianhe shatter his sword, Mo Yan, who was about to launch a sneak attack, immediately gave up on the idea and sneaked back into the void. This is one of the secrets that this City Lord discovered using flesh and blood. Mo Yan, an ant like you should obediently lie down. As for you, go to hell. Wan Qianhe had clearly gone completely mad. As soon as he finished speaking, he threw the City Lord's token at Night Sorrow again. This time, the City Lord token released a boundless murderous aura and blood that filled the sky. It was as if it wanted to use a surging sea of blood to devour Night Sorrow. It already has the aura of a sovereign, but it's still far from being a true sovereign-grade artifact. Night Sorrow, who was holding the Tianyuan Bao, faced Wan Qianhe's attack. While he was surprised, he immediately shot 5 element arrows at the sea of blood. When the arrow of virtue shot out, the dense power of virtue immediately purified most of the blood sea, but the remaining one still attacked Night Sorrow. At this moment, Knight Sorrow summoned the Dragon of Virtue and transformed it into his divine domain. As the sea of blood surged, Knight Sorrow flew up. Although he looked like a grain of sand in the sea of blood, he did not suffer any damage. The power of virtue had a strong suppressive effect on this kind of bloody aura. Power of virtue, it's the power of virtue again. If not for this, even if you have a sovereign-grade artifact, you won't be a match for me. Go to hell. Become its sacrifice. Luan Qianhe was furious when he saw that he had used up a large amount of the City Lord's token to summon a terrifying sea of blood, but it did not cause any real damage to Knight Sorrow. He no longer had any flesh on his body, and his face was just bones with a trace of flesh. It was impossible to see his expression, but he gave off an extremely evil feeling. After he roared, he threw out the City Lord's token for the third time. This time, when the City Lord's token was thrown out, it immediately transformed into a towering mountain of blood that pressed down on Knight Sorrow. It seems like you have completely pinned all your hopes on the City Lord's token in front of you. Let me tell you the truth. Although the City Lord's token is made of sovereign-grade materials, it is clearly not a sovereign-grade artifact. At most, it is only slightly stronger than a half-step sovereign-grade artifact. Seeing that the City Lord's token had transformed into a mountain of blood that pressed down on him, Knight Sorrow did not use the Tianyun Bao. Instead, he used the profound heaven-roaming dragon steps to dodge. While dodging, Knight Sorrow opened his mouth and roared. It is not a sovereign-grade artifact yet, but once it absorbs enough flesh and blood, it will completely evolve into a sovereign-grade artifact. You can't dodge it at all. Luan Qianhe roared coldly with a ferocious look on his face. Under his control, the City Lord's token transformed into a mountain of blood that completely locked onto Knight Sorrow, bringing him great pressure. Look, you can't escape at all. Although the Tianyun Bao is a sovereign-grade artifact, it is clearly unable to resist the City Lord's token's token. Luan Qianhe immediately roared coldly when he saw that Knight Sorrow was in a sorry state. At the same time, he controlled the City Lord's token to continue injecting blood into the mountain of blood. After Luan Qianhe had completely injected all the blood from the City Lord's token into the mountain of blood, he said coldly, "Prepare to die. What you are facing is the City Lord's token's strongest attack. Even a half-step sovereign-grade expert cannot resist it." At this moment, the mountain of blood had completely suppressed Knight Sorrow. "Lord Knight Sorrow, I will save you." Seeing that Knight Sorrow was being suppressed by the mountain of blood, Mo Yen, who was originally hiding in the void, roared and immediately came out to help. He struck out a palm at Luan Qianhe, who was controlling the City Lord's token. "I have already said that you are just an ant. Otherwise, why would I have given up on you back then?" Facing Mo Yan's palm, Luan Qianhe, who was controlling the City Lord's token, did not care at all. He raised his hand and sent Mo Yan flying. "Humph. If I am not wrong, you do not have any other helpers. Accept your fate of death. Tianyun Bao is mine." Seeing that Knight Sorrow was still being suppressed by the mountain of blood, Luan Qianhe spoke again with a hoarse voice. "Looks like the City Lord's token's blood chi has been exhausted. Since that is the case, prepare to die." At this moment, Knight Sorrow, who seemed to be in a sorry state, roared in a low voice. Then he controlled Tianyun Bao and made him absorb the energy contained in the mountain of blood. Tianyun Bao could even absorb the blood-colored origin energy, let alone the energy contained in the blood-colored mountain of blood. In the process just now, Knight Sorrow had been resisting the mountain of blood and did not use Tianyun Bao. He was waiting for Luan Qianhe to completely release the City Lord's token's blood chi. Now Luan Qianhe's greatest reliance was the City Lord's token that contained a large amount of blood chi. If it was destroyed, Luan Qianhe would definitely not be able to fight back. What is going on? When Tianyun Bao was controlled by Knight Sorrow and began to swallow the blood chi, Luan Qianhe was completely dumbfounded. At this moment, it was too late for him to withdraw the City Lord's token. In almost a moment, the entire mountain of blood was completely absorbed by Tianyun Bao. Chapter 28-21. Amidst the original golden color, there was an inconspicuous touch of red. As for the aura, it was much more powerful. After Tianyun Bao's aura rose to the peak that he could activate, Night Sorrow continuously shot out the 5 elements virtuous arrows. They formed the 5 elements arrow formation and attacked Luan Qianhe. City Lord Token, protect me. At this moment, Luan Qianhe was still superstitious after the City Lord Token lost its blood energy. At the critical moment, he controlled the City Lord Token again to block the attack of the 5 elements arrow formation. However, it was obvious that Luan Qianhe had underestimated the power of Tianyun Bao and the 5 elements arrow formation. Tianyun Bao, who was activated by so much blood, erupted with power that cultivators below the level of ruler could not withstand. Buzz. With a loud bang, Luan Qianhe's body was completely shattered under the attack of the 5 elements arrow formation and was annihilated in the void. The City Lord's token fell from the void. What was surprising was that the City Lord's token wasn't damaged in the slightest after being attacked by the 5-element arrow formation. This made Yishan extremely astonished. He reached out and took the City Lord token. After studying it for a while, he realized that the material of this thing was very special. It was cold to the touch and heavier than a mountain. Even Night Sorrow had to use one hand to barely hold him back. Luan Qianhe was actually killed by Lord Night Sorrow. And it was such a straightforward instant kill. While Night Sorrow was studying the City Lord token, Mo Yin appeared from the void again. He had been hit by Luan Qianhe's palm and was quite injured. There was some blood at the corner of his mouth. He is doomed to die for his sins. Night Sorrow replied casually. In fact, he could kill Luan Qianhe so easily. It was directly related to the fact that the other party had absorbed a large amount of blood energy. If Tianyun Bao had not absorbed a large amount of blood energy, he would not have been able to kill Luan Qianhe so thoroughly in one move. Yes, he deserved to die. Thinking of the many cultivators in the God Realm territory, Luan Qianhe's face was filled with hatred. How can I use the ruler's token to leave this realm? At this moment, Night Sorrow came back to his senses and felt that it was better to leave this place. As for the ruler's token, it was no longer important what material it was made of. At the top of the broken bridge, just pour your divine essence energy into the City Lord token, Mo Yin said. At this moment, the Dragon Sparrow King and Phoenix King were both trembling with excitement. This was the moment that they had dreamed of for Night Sorrow. However, after hearing Mo Yan's words, he did not immediately activate the City Leader token on the broken bridge. Instead, they circled the entire small world. Luan Qianhe had killed almost all of the high gods in the minor world. There were only a few divine sovereigns and a large number of high gods among the foreign creatures. He felt that this was too unfair to the remaining cultivators of the god realm. So he killed all the foreign creatures above the divine feather realm to balance out the strength of both sides. Then he returned to the broken bridge and activated the City Lord's token. Boom! The moment the City Lord token was activated, a huge rumbling sound rang out from the sky above the broken bridge. Then, as if a mountain had been cut open, a huge void gate appeared in the void. We're finally leaving this place. Seeing the huge void appear, the Dragon Sparrow King in the clear sky pagoda actually shed tears of excitement. The Phoenix King's eyes were also misty. They had been guarding the ancestor Phoenix and had grown from ordinary sparrows to giants like the Divine King. However, what they yearned for the most was freedom. Mo Yin was the same. When he saw Night Sorrow activate the City Lord token, he trembled and said to Night Sorrow, Mo Yin, thanks Lord Night Sorrow for saving my life. From now on, I will serve you forever. Let's go. Night Sorrow did not refute Mo Yan's words. He glanced at him and walked through the sky gate. After bringing Mo Yan through the sky gate, Night Sorrow returned to the place where he had started. Seeing Huafeng, who was an upper god king, he said, Since I came out of the trial, does that mean I've passed the trial? Yes. You have succeeded. The Fire Phoenix nodded in response. She then smiled and said, Next, I'll take you to receive the opportunity left behind by the Lord. No need. My two companions, how are they now? Did you succeed in passing the trial? Night Sorrow was naturally interested in the opportunity left behind by the ancestor Phoenix. However, he wanted to give it to Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei. Moreover, after experiencing so many battles, he was also a bit worried for the two of them. fearing that they would encounter terrifying opponents. You don't have to worry about them. Compared to the difficulty of your challenge, they didn't encounter a test at all. Phoenix explained. They both have the Phoenix bloodline and are the descendants of the ancestor Phoenix. In fact, you're the only one who received the test. I see. How long will it take for them to receive the inheritance? Night Sorrow continued to ask. He wanted to wait for the two to come out before sharing the inheritance with them. However, before the Fire Phoenix could reply, the Fire Phoenix in the Clear Sky Pagoda sent a voice transmission to Yi Shang while shedding tears. Sir Yi Shang, let me out. All right. Come on out. Phoenix opened her mouth tearfully. Night Sorrow was a little surprised at first, then immediately understood something. Very clearly, she and Phoenix should be old acquaintances. The Phoenix who originally wanted to open her mouth and explain the problem to Night Sorrow saw Phoenix's figure appear from the vast heaven pagoda. Her eyes immediately became wet too. She asked with a trembling voice, "Little sister? Big brother?" Phoenix who came out of the vast heaven pagoda directly threw herself into Phoenix's embrace. It turned out that they were actually brother and sister. After the brother and sister exchanged a few tearful greetings, Hua Huang immediately told Hua Huang about how Yi Shang had rescued her. Hearing this, the Phoenix who transformed into human form immediately knelt down in front of Night Sorrow. Phoenix thanks Lord Night Sorrow for saving my sister's grace. Leader Phoenix, you don't have to be polite. Night Sorrow immediately helped her up politely. The Phoenix who was helped up opened her mouth again and said, Lord Night Sorrow and your two friends, after cultivating, Phoenix's mission is already completed. At that time, I'll follow Lord Night Sorrow. Good. If possible, I'll bring you guys to find Lord Supreme Ancestor Phoenix. Hearing Phoenix's words, Night Sorrow immediately recalled the matter of the Eternal Supreme World. At present, he was already a high-ranked Divine Lord, and was already very close to the Divine King realm. If there were no accidents, when he reached the Divine King realm and cultivated a clone, he would be guided to the Eternal Supreme World. Good. Phoenix yearns for it. The Phoenix who originally thought that after Night Sorrow took her in, she would fight in the Divine Realm. Hearing Night Sorrow say so, she immediately became excited. Phoenix also looks forward to meeting Lord Supreme again. Phoenix was the same. Different from the others in the Divine Realm, they were clear that Supreme Ancestor Phoenix still existed. It was just that she was fighting in other realms. Chapter 28-22. They all missed the Ancestor Phoenix, who had changed their fates. As soon as they heard that they could see her again, they couldn't contain their excitement. Back when they'd been with the Ancestor Phoenix, they hadn't developed much intelligence. Now they were all divine kings. Although they hadn't reached the peak of the God realm, they were clearly no longer ordinary. Night Sorrow had taken them in as his subordinates. The number of divine kings in the immortal divine realm was quite impressive, and most of them were hidden in the shadows. If anyone dared to provoke the immortal divine realm, they'd be dealt a fatal blow. The immortal divine realm was stronger than anyone could imagine. As long as a ruler didn't interfere, it was impregnable. If he kept the divine kings by his side, the immortal divine realm would continue to be strong. However, Night Sorrow felt that if they showed themselves, it would affect Night Moon's determination to work hard. After all, comfort was the cause of a person's downfall. Afterwards, the others explained the Ancestor Phoenix's matter to Night Sorrow. Flame Phoenix said, Lord Night Sorrow, your two friends are receiving a bloodline inheritance. This process will take a long time, at least 1,000 years, and at most a few epochs. You can't just wait here. Why don't you go and receive the bloodline inheritance? My lord once said that the resources are not to be shared. Not to be shared? What do you mean? Night Sorrow asked in confusion. My lord said that the rewards vary from person to person. Your rewards aren't suitable for others, Flame Phoenix said. The Fire Phoenix said and continued, Oh right. Lord Night Sorrow once said that you'd like some parasol grass. I'll go get it for you right away. Then I'll have to trouble you, Flame Phoenix. Night Sorrow said politely. Sister, come with me. Big brother has some things to say to you. Flame Phoenix and Night Sorrow nodded. then brought Flame Phoenix with them to gather the parasol grass. They had entered a different spatial world. This spatial world was where the ancestor phoenix had once cultivated. After entering the space, Huofeng immediately said, "Little sister, I'm sorry. This is where Sir used to cultivate. Although the wutong tree has been taken away, there is still a lot of wutong grass here. We can help Sir get a few. As for the other opportunities, let's not take them." Of course. Huang is already satisfied to be able to see Big Brother. The Fire Phoenix King replied with a hint of satisfaction between her brows. Furthermore, the two of us have already washed away all the impurities and become true members of the Phoenix clan. What more can I ask for? Of course it's to become a sovereign. Only by becoming sovereigns can we truly welcome a new life. Gain a foothold in the eternal supreme world. The Flame Phoenix said in a matter-of-fact manner. These words had been revealed to him by the ancestral Phoenix Supreme Being, and he had deeply engraved them in his heart. Good. Let's work together. Fire Phoenix replied and continued. Lord Night Sorrow's luck is exceedingly high. We shouldn't be wrong to follow him. When she first stood in Night Sorrow's camp, Fire Phoenix was actually not convinced at all. However, after seeing Night Sorrow's boldness and methods, she gradually became convinced. Little sister, you're right. You're right. Lord Phoenix ancestor once said that Lord Night Sorrow would become a supreme existence one day. At this point, Huofeng suddenly stopped and didn't say anything else. Together with Fire Phoenix, she helped Night Sorrow pick 9 wutong grass. After the two of them returned and handed the wutong grass to Night Sorrow, Night Sorrow thanked them. Thank you for your hard work. Lord Night Sorrow, it's nothing. Huofeng replied politely and continued. Lord Night Sorrow, do you still have the token you used to pass the trial? Yes. After replying, Yishang handed over the City Lord token. Huofeng took the City Lord token and examined it in her hand. She said, Sir obtained this item from that realm. The level of the material is higher than the sovereign level. Lord Night Sorrow can smelt it into a divine weapon. What? Beyond the sovereign level? Isn't that a sovereign level material? No wonder even a sovereign level artifact's attack didn't work on it. Night Sorrow was extremely shocked when he heard Huofeng's words. The token in front of him could very well be the strongest material in the realm of the gods. Should I merge it into Tianyan Bao, or the heavenly Samsara halberd? From the perspective of raising one's strength, adding this material to the celestial cloud bow would definitely bring about great benefits. However, in terms of feelings, Night Sorrow still hoped to merge it into the heavenly Samsara halberd. He wanted to forge the heavenly Samsara halberd into a sovereign-level artifact. Therefore, he hesitated for a moment. At this moment, Huofeng said, Lord Night Sorrow, anything below the level of a sovereign-level artifact won't be able to withstand this sovereign-level material. In my opinion, why don't you merge it into the sovereign-level artifact? After you smelt it, the sovereign-level artifact might completely recognize you as its master. It might even produce an artifact spirit. Oh, is that so? If Tianyan Bao could produce an artifact spirit or completely recognize him as its master, it would undoubtedly increase Night Sorrow's combat strength to a heaven-defying level. After thinking about it for a moment, Night Sorrow decided to toss it into the sovereign artifact, Heavenly Cloud Bao. Lord, you can enter Lord Ancestor Phoenix's cultivation ground. Only that place can withstand it. As for us, we won't be going in. Lord Ancestor Phoenix has already prepared the opportunities inside for you. The Fire Phoenix said, then sent Night Sorrow to the Ancestor Phoenix's former cultivation ground. After entering the real Ancestor Phoenix's lair, Night Sorrow immediately felt a vast aura. The aura contained within the aura was not something some sovereigns could possess. Night Sorrow was immediately moved. He felt that this was a great aura. Tianyan Bao, let's begin. Standing in the Ancestor Phoenix's lair, and feeling the stability of the space, Night Sorrow immediately felt that Huofeng's words made sense. Choosing this place to smelt the sovereign-level artifact was clearly the best choice. He did not hesitate and immediately threw the City Lord token into Tianyan Bao. The moment this supreme-level material was thrown into Tianyan Bao, a scene actually occurred. Whether it was Tianyan Bao or this material, They all fused together and turned into a liquid. The energy contained within the liquid made Night Sorrow's heart palpitate. At this moment, even a drop of this liquid could seriously injure him. Its power was simply unparalleled. Should I restore Tianyun Bao or create a spear? Looking at the materials in front of him, Night Sorrow's thoughts moved. However, in the end he did not change Tianyun Bao's appearance. This was because Tianyun Bao was the Tianyun school's most precious artifact. It was not good for him to change its appearance without permission. Even so, after Tianyun Bao was formed again, it immediately produced a new artifact spirit. It was a vague little life that had just been born and was very fragile. Chapter 28-23. It was a feeling of intimacy. Night Sorrow could clearly sense the little life's thoughts. When it was first born, it was at a loss, but a moment later, it sensed Night Sorrow's presence. A blurry figure appeared on the strengthened Tianyun Bao. Night Sorrow soon sensed the tiny life form's hunger, and fed it some blood. However, the newly born spirit automaton had no interest in blood. Night Sorrow fed it a few more things, and after confirming that it liked divine crystals, he took out a large quantity and began feeding it. Gradually, the spirit automaton's aura rose from the winged god level to the great god level. Your aura has reached the great god level. Do you understand what I mean? I want to give you a name. What do you think? After Bai Shaoqi stopped devouring divine crystals for the time being, Night Sorrow said. At the same time, he sensed that Tianyun Bao was under his control. All right. The spirit automaton replied vaguely. Clearly, after becoming a great god, it had gained some intelligence, but its speech was unclear. It sounded like a child talking. You're Tianyun Bao's spirit automaton. How about I call you Little Sky? What do you think? Yishan asked in a questioning tone. Little Sky. My name is Little Sky. The spirit automaton didn't resist receiving a name. On the contrary, it was a bit excited. After that, Night Sorrow communicated with it briefly, and confirmed that it needed to consume large amounts of divine crystals, or natural treasures to advance. Only when it reached the divine king or sovereign level would it be able to fight alongside Night Sorrow. For now, Night Sorrow had to rely on his own strength to use Tianyun Bao. Night Sorrow was a bit surprised. After all, he had never seen the spirit automaton of a sovereign-level artifact. He had thought that Tianyun Bao's spirit automaton would have the aura of a sovereign-level artifact. I wonder what kind of opportunity the Ancestor Phoenix left behind. After communicating with Little Sky, Night Sorrow began searching the lesser world for opportunities left behind by the Ancestor Phoenix. However, after searching for almost a month, he didn't find anything at all. Even the Wutong grass was nowhere to be found. On this day, Night Sorrow began to use the eye of the sea serpent again. He searched carefully, but he didn't find anything. He couldn't sense anything with his divine soul either. He was sure that the Ancestral Phoenix didn't leave anything behind. So he prepared to go to the Ancestral Phoenix's nest immediately. Haha! Night Sorrow, aren't you going to look for more time? Just as Yishang was about to leave, a faintly discernible voice was heard in the void. Soon after, the blurry image of Supreme Ancestor Phoenix appeared in the void. There was a faint smile between his brows. Lord Supreme. Upon seeing Supreme Ancestor Phoenix, Night Sorrow was immediately surprised. Night Sorrow, now that you have cultivated to the level of a high divine lord, you are not far from becoming a divine king. Are you prepared to leave? Supreme Phoenix Ancestor went straight to the point. Clearly, he had a reason for staying here. To be honest, I'm not completely prepared. I can't bear to part with my family. However, the God realm needs it. I, Night Sorrow, am duty-bound. Night Sorrow was silent for a moment before replying. Sigh. At this moment, Supreme Ancestor Phoenix sighed and said, if it wasn't for the fact that the God world is declining day by day in the eternal Supreme world, and is threatening the existence of the entire God world, we old fellows wouldn't be giving you so much pressure. If we don't give you time to grow, we are useless. Lord Supreme, don't say that. Night Sorrow has no intention of resisting. Night Sorrow replied and asked, you said that the situation of the God realm over there isn't optimistic. The #1 expert of the God realm has disappeared in a temple and hasn't appeared for nearly an epoch. The neighboring realms are already restless and might join forces to destroy us at any time. If we don't nurture a top combat power, the God realm will be completely destroyed. Supreme Ancestor Phoenix said, and then continued, the crisis that the God realm is facing is very similar to the situation you faced when you were trying to break through. First, they are not strong enough. Second, people's hearts are not what they used to be. Some people have already gone astray. It seems that the situation in the eternal supreme world is indeed critical. It's a pity that with my strength, there's no way for me to quickly advance to the sovereign level. With just a few words from Supreme Ancestor Phoenix, Knight Sorrow could feel how difficult it was to enter the God realm in the eternal supreme world. At this moment he felt that his strength was still rising a little slowly. Although it was already a miraculous existence in the God realm, it was still too weak in the eternal supreme world. There, if one didn't have the strength of a sovereign, one wouldn't have any sense of existence at all. Don't worry, your strength is rising quickly. Besides, we have already arranged a path for you over there. As long as you can persevere to the end, you will definitely be able to turn the tide when you descend again. After Supreme Ancestor Phoenix said this, he continued, however, you are someone that we have our eyes on. There are also other Supremes who have their eyes on others, so you will have to face competition. Only the strongest among you will be able to receive unreserved support. They went there earlier than you, and some of them have even advanced to the sovereign level. However, your potential is greater than theirs. We won't be wrong. There are actually sovereign-level opponents. Hearing this, Knight Sorrow immediately felt a trace of pressure. But then he asked doubtfully, isn't their strength also a blessing for the God realm? It's not the same. Not every Supremes wants to protect the God realm. Some only think about themselves. Supreme Ancestor Phoenix revealed some more information, and his phantom gradually weakened. Understanding that time was running out, he immediately threw a brocade bag to Knight Sorrow. He said, take it. This is the material needed to cultivate a clone. Time is tight, so there's no need to look for resources everywhere. Knight Sorrow will break through to the Divine King as soon as possible. Knight Sorrow, who received the brocade bag, replied. In addition, Knight Sorrow will settle the matters of the God realm in the near future. Good. When you cultivate a clone, we will personally come to pick you up. Supreme Ancestor Phoenix said once more before vanishing into thin air. The responsibility is great. After Supreme Ancestor Phoenix's figure completely disappeared, scenes flashed through Knight Sorrow's mind one after another. Those unfinished things flashed through his mind continuously. For example, rescuing Mo Chen and the others, setting up the Heaven and Earth Concealment Formation, the Dark Abyss Summoning Formation, and refining a clone. In addition to these, there was also the chaos of the Cloud Fairy continent. After leaving the Ancestral Phoenix's nest, Knight Sorrow reappeared in front of the Fire Phoenix siblings and the Dragon Sparrow King. He said, if nothing unexpected happens, I will go to the Cloud Fairy continent to quell the chaos there. Then, I will go to the Nine Heavens Shrine. Does anyone want to go with me? I'll go. Chapter 28-24. After Dragon Sparrow King spoke, Mo Yen, who was in the Clear Sky Pagoda, said, I'll go too. Fire Phoenix King looked at Fire Phoenix King and said, brother, you stay here and guard Knight Sorrow's family. I'll go with him. Okay, go. Take your brother's strength with you. Fire Phoenix King said and handed Fire Phoenix dozens of divine talismans that he had accumulated over the years. Okay, I won't embarrass you. Fire Phoenix King took the divine talismans from Fire Phoenix King and bowed to him. Then she entered Knight Sorrow's Clear Sky Pagoda with Dragon Sparrow King and the others. After taking them in, Knight Sorrow looked at Fire Phoenix and said, Knight Sorrow is pressed for time. I can't wait any longer. Brother Fire Phoenix, please take care of my family. Don't worry, Lord Knight Sorrow. I'll take good care of your family. Fire Phoenix King was very respectful to Knight Sorrow. He cupped his fists and replied. Yi Shang chuckled when he saw Huafeng's gaze. I'll take good care of Huafeng as well. Thank you, Lord Knight Sorrow. Fire Phoenix, whose thoughts were seen through by Yishang, also laughed. If you have nothing else to say, we'll leave now. Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to everyone in the Clear Sky Pagoda when he was about to leave. No, let's go. Dragon Sparrow King and the others did not say anything. Fire Phoenix King and Fire Phoenix King had already bid farewell, so there was nothing else to say. After that, Night Sorrow left Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei a letter each and rushed back to the immortal divine realm. To his surprise, the domain master's manner was very lively. His son Yi Xiaokei had returned and was talking to his concubines. Xiaokei, you're back. After descending slowly from the void to the domain master's manor, Night Sorrow immediately walked into the living room where Yi Xiaokei and Night Sorrow's wives were. Father, I'm back. Seeing Night Sorrow return, Yi Xiaokei immediately got up from his chair and knelt on the ground. Xiaokei, what's wrong with you? Night Sorrow, who was originally very happy, immediately frowned when he saw Yi Xiaokei's face. At this moment, when Yi Xiaokei saw him return, he actually shed tears. Father, it's Xiaokei's fault for not being able to save our old friend. Let them be captured by the enemy, Yi Xiaokei said regretfully. What's going on? Tell me. Night Sorrow's heart immediately clenched when he heard those words. As Yi Xiaokei explained the situation, Night Sorrow immediately understood. When Yi Xiaokei was returning to the immortal divine realm, he happened to encounter Tran Heng and King Ye Wu being targeted by a powerful Sir God. Yi Xiaokei tried his best to fight back, but was defeated by the opponent. He had to use all his strength to escape. Tran Heng, martial uncle, was captured. What's the name of that divine lord? After listening to Yi Xiaokei's description, anger appeared on Night Sorrow's face. Father, that person is called Sir God Gunglong from the great All-Heaven Ruler's residence. Uncle Jin Nye went to ask for them, but not only did he fail, but he was also injured by a divine king, Yi Xiaokei continued. Xiaokei, rest well with your aunts. I'll bring Tran Heng and martial uncle back. After hearing Yi Xiaokei's words, Night Sorrow completely understood the cause and effect of this matter. It turned out that this was all because of the great All-Heaven Ruler. It was no wonder that Yi Xiaokei and Jin Nye were helpless. Although he was furious, Night Sorrow knew that this wasn't Yi Xiaokei's fault. After comforting him, he took Jin Nye to the great All-Heaven Ruler's residence. Who dares to behave atrociously in front of the great All-Heaven Ruler's residence? Night Sorrow's figure had just appeared in front of the great All-Heaven Ruler's residence when he was chided by the guards. Say that Night Sorrow is here to see the great All-Heaven Ruler. Night Sorrow said coldly as he glanced at the two high god guards. Bastard! Do you think the Great Lord is someone you can meet just because you want to? The two guards smiled disdainfully as they berated Luo Yunyang. Go inform him or die. Night Sorrow immediately released his terrifying godly domain and forced the two high god guards to kneel on the ground. You dare to make a move in the great All-Heaven Ruler's residence? You must be tired of living. One of the high gods was forced to the ground by Night Sorrow, looking completely indignant. It was obvious that he was used to being arrogant, so he dared to show off his strength in front of a divine lord. Who dares to behave so atrociously in the great All-Heaven Ruler's residence? After Night Sorrow made his move, two divine lords immediately rushed out of the great All-Heaven Ruler's residence. When they saw Night Sorrow, they immediately berated him. Night Sorrow requests an audience with the great All-Heaven Ruler. Please go and report this, Yishang said word by word. The importance of Tran Heng and King Yenwu went without saying. Even if he had to face the great All-Heaven Ruler, Night Sorrow wouldn't cower. Night Sorrow. You are Night Sorrow. You are the enemy who killed my father. When they heard Night Sorrow's name, one of the handsome divine lords flew into a rage. His father was the divine King Qingtian, who had been killed in the great All-Heaven Spirit Gathering Array, while attacking Night Sorrow. Upon hearing this, Yishang said coldly, I don't know who your father is. Immediately report to the Overlord of the All-Heaven that Yishang requests an audience. You want me to inform the Great Lord on your behalf? Dream on. Divine Lord Qingyan's face was filled with hatred as he taunted. If you have the ability, why don't you barge in? I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. Great All-Heaven Ruler, come out. Night Sorrow, whose patience had run out, gathered his divine origin energy and shouted. He knew that Luo Tian would definitely hear him. Who is it? How dare you call the great all-heaven ruler by his name? Are you tired of living? Or is the great lord here? Everyone in Luo Tian City was in disbelief when they heard someone call Luo Tian by his name. Soon, many cultivators gathered near the great all-heaven ruler's manor to watch the show. However, Luo Tian didn't appear even after Night Sorrow had called him 3 times. If you don't come out, I will destroy your great lord's manor. Luo Tian clearly didn't want to appear. Night Sorrow shouted and took out the Tianyun Bao from his spatial artifact. The Tianyun Bao had been strengthened by a supreme-grade material, and had completely recognized Night Sorrow as its master. As he held the Heaven Cloud Bao, Yi Shang felt a sense of familiarity that he had never felt before. How dare you? Do you think you can do as you please in my great all-heaven ruler's manor? Since the establishment of the great all-heaven ruler's manor, no one has dared to come here and shout. Just as Night Sorrow was about to make a move, the divine king of the great all-heaven ruler's manor appeared with his men. Soon 2 other divine kings appeared. The 3 divine kings surrounded Night Sorrow. They all looked hostile and ready to attack at any moment. Hand over my 2 friends or let Luo Tian come out. Otherwise, the 3 of you won't be kind today. Night Sorrow, who was surrounded by the 3 divine kings, didn't panic at all. Chapter 28-25. Good. I know. Is the divine weapon he used the same as the one you used in the last battle? Yi Shang asked when he heard Jin Ye's voice transmission. In his memories, Jin Ye and the Azura God King had fought before. It's different. It's definitely different. His divine weapon is very special. You must be careful, Governor. Jin Ye had wanted to call him Lord Night Sorrow, but after some thought, he felt that calling him Governor was more appropriate. Don't worry, I'll be careful. It's obvious that Luo Tian is plotting against me. Night Sorrow nodded and looked at the Divine King. It's hard for us to resolve this peacefully. I'm afraid you're the one who's hard to resolve. You're the first person to cause trouble in front of the sovereign's residence, and you'll be the last. The Divine King looked sinister, as if he wanted to tear Night Sorrow to shreds. The other 2 divine kings had an indescribable look in their eyes. It felt as if they'd already predicted that Night Sorrow would come. Since you've already devised a countermeasure, show me what you've got. I'll definitely take my friend with me. Night Sorrow looked at the 3 divine kings with a cold expression. Tran Hung and King Yewu were extremely important elders to him. Whether he was facing the divine king or the sovereign, he had to rescue them. He wouldn't back down in the slightest. How dare a divine emperor be so arrogant? Let's go. The divine king's face darkened when he heard Night Sorrow's words. He roared and took out a fan-shaped divine weapon from his spatial artifact. He slapped it viciously at Night Sorrow. When this fan-shaped divine weapon was fanned out, it didn't cause any wind to blow. However, Yi Shan felt as if his soul was about to be blown out of his body. It was extremely uncomfortable. Ha! How dare a puny divine emperor be so arrogant? The 2 of you don't have to be courteous. If you have the chance, kill him in an instant. Hegemon Tianai said that no one at the hegemon level was allowed to touch him, but he never mentioned anything about the Divine King. Everyone, don't hold back. Don't worry. We won't hold back. The Divine King smirked coldly. As for the other Divine King, he didn't say anything, but he radiated a powerful aura. The All-Heaven Sovereign had recently introduced him to the Azura Divine King and Graceful Divine King. His temper was a little strange. He never spoke and gave people an extremely dangerous feeling. Although the Divine King of Azura acted as if he was in charge of his work, he was secretly afraid of this strange and nameless Divine King. Domain Lord, this is the move. Be careful of your soul. At this time, Jin Ye saw the Divine King of Azura attack and immediately warned. Night Sorrow, who had already sensed the damage to his soul, fused his 2 bodies together and forcibly resisted the Divine King's feather fan. As expected, he's not simple. I can't give him the chance to keep attacking. Although he had blocked the Divine King of Azura's attack, Night Sorrow didn't underestimate him. With the feather fan divine artifact in front of him, the Divine King of Azura, who wasn't all that strong, immediately became much more of a threat. As this thought flashed through his mind, Knight Sorrow put away the Tianyan bow. Wielding the Samsara halberd, he fired a forbidden shot at the Divine King of Azura. The power of this shot was enough to threaten the Divine King of Azura. The Divine King of Azura clearly couldn't resist it. Save me. Realizing that he couldn't resist this move, the Divine King of Azura immediately cried for help. Don't panic. We're here. The Divine King of Azura responded. Then he brandished the giant sword in his hand and slashed at Knight Sorrow. He wanted to help the Divine King of Azura block this attack. Intermediate Divine King, you want to block the forbidden shot? You've misjudged your own strength. Seeing the Divine King of Azura block his attack for the Divine King of Azura, Knight Sorrow immediately fired the forbidden shot at his opponent. To him, it didn't matter which one he dealt with first. Not good. Knight Sorrow, be careful. But at this time, Fire Phoenix in the Clear Sky Pagoda suddenly warned. It turned out that the silent Divine King of Azura had circled behind Knight Sorrow and was preparing to attack him. Even someone as sharp as Knight Sorrow didn't notice this. It was Fire Phoenix in the Clear Sky Pagoda who saw the Divine King of Azura about to attack. When Knight Sorrow reacted, he was about to stop immediately, but it was obviously too late. His spear suddenly sent the Divine King of Azura flying. But he was also hit by the ghost-like Divine King of Azura. After being hit in the back, Knight Sorrow's protective divine domain was immediately penetrated. He also suffered a very serious attack. If not for Tianyan Bao protecting him, he would probably have been killed by this terrifying palm. Who are you? The heavily injured Knight Sorrow recovered a little and looked at the Divine King of Azura in front of him. This person was 7 feet tall and had a decent appearance. He looked like a rare handsome man, but his face was always deep and expressionless. He hadn't said a word since he appeared. At this time, he used his divine soul to lock onto him. Knight Sorrow was shocked, because although this Divine King of Azura in front of him deliberately concealed his aura, his true strength was obviously above the Demon King's. This was too terrifying. It's impossible. If the ruler of all heaven had such a Divine King, he would have come to deal with me long ago. He wouldn't have stayed until now. After confirming the other party's strength, Knight Sorrow was puzzled. All this time, although he didn't know much about the divine realm, he knew that all heaven didn't have such a powerful Divine King. I'm the person who will kill you. After Knight Sorrow spoke, the Divine King of Azura's face revealed an unnatural sneer. He coldly used his divine soul to send a message. Then he used his ultimate technique and attacked Knight Sorrow again. This time, the Divine King of Azura didn't launch a sneak attack, but it brought more pressure to Knight Sorrow. That kind of pressure had faintly surpassed the Divine King's level and was approaching the ruler level. Amazing! The Divine King of Azura, who didn't know much about the Divine King of Azura, shouted and waved the feather fan in his hand at the same time. Lord Knight Sorrow, let us go out and lend you a hand. Seeing Knight Sorrow being attacked by such a powerful Divine King, Dragon Sparrow King, who was in the Clear Sky Pagoda, immediately became anxious. Jinya also asked for battle. Domain Master, let Jinya out to fight. Fire Phoenix King and Mo Yin did the same. The 4 Divine Kings all asked for battle. At this time Knight Sorrow shook his head and said, No, I dare to fight here because of Ruler Tianya's words. All heaven doesn't dare to touch me. If you fight here, you will be instantly killed. After replying to everyone in the Clear Sky Pagoda, Knight Sorrow took out the Tianyan Bow and the Sky Cloud Arrow and shot them at the Divine King of Azura to resist his attack. He's finally using the ruler-level divine weapon. Chapter 28-26. Why do I feel so evil? There's definitely something wrong with this Divine King. When Yi Shang saw the Nameless God King's disdainful expression, an ominous feeling flashed through his heart. Because no Divine King would have such an expression when facing a Dominator divine weapon. Boom. When the Heavenly Cloud Arrow collided with the Divine King's attack, the void exploded. Knight Sorrow's mood became even more solemn. The Divine King took the Heavenly Cloud Arrow head-on, and actually withstood it completely, not suffering any injuries. Although the combat strength he displayed seemed similar to the Demon King's, Night Sorrow's combat strength seemed to be on the same level as the Demon King. But in reality, Night Sorrow felt that he was clearly in a state of ease. And he still had a lot of strength left. Humph. Ants will always be ants. With the strength of a divine lord, you can't unleash the power of a dominator divine weapon. After the Divine King took the heavenly cloud arrow head-on, an even colder and more arrogant expression appeared between his brows. You are very strong, and you might even be close to the dominator level. But today, I must bring back my family. Night Sorrow originally wanted to say friends, but after thinking about it, he felt that Tran Hung and King Yawu were already in the category of family. After saying that, he took out 5 heavenly cloud arrows and shot them at the Divine King. Now that God King Violent Grace was heavily injured, Night Sorrow was prepared to deal with the threat of the Azura God King in a fit of rage. Then he would fight the nameless God King. You want to kill the Divine King in front of this king? Dream on. The Divine King saw Night Sorrow shoot the 5 elements arrow at the Divine King, but he was not afraid and once again faced it. Boom. What surprised everyone in the Clear Heaven Pagoda was that the Divine King was still uninjured after taking the 5 elements arrow head-on. That terrifying combat strength already made people's hearts palpitate. That's impossible. This is absolutely impossible. How could he have caught the 5-element arrow so easily? Within the Clear Heaven Pagoda, the Dragon Sparrow King was well aware of the might of the 5-element arrow. Seeing that the Divine King was able to catch the 5-element arrow without suffering any damage, he was so shocked that his jaw dropped. Fire Phoenix King, who was also clear about the power of the 5 elements arrow, frowned and said, "The current Tianyun Bao has already been strengthened by the Supreme City Lord token. The current 5 elements arrow is definitely more terrifying than before. However, he was able to catch it so easily. This means that he is most likely a dominator. Lord Night Sorrow, you have to be careful. If you really can't do it, then retreat. If I can't bring back Tran Hung and Martial Uncle today, I won't leave no matter what." Night Sorrow was naturally aware of the strength of the nameless Divine King, but his attitude was very firm. He had no intention of backing down. According to his judgment, this nameless Divine King was very strange. He seemed to be very clear about the power of a dominator. Even if he wasn't a dominator, he must have absorbed a large amount of dominator laws. His strength was at least a half-step dominator. However, Night Sorrow had seen a dominator before, so he knew that his opponent was definitely not a dominator. As long as he wasn't a dominator, then he had a chance of defeating him. Haha. How is it, Ant? You're just a divine sovereign ant. Do you really think you're a big shot in the divine realm? After the nameless Divine King spoke, it seemed that he couldn't hold back anymore. He said disdainfully, "Prepare to accept your fate of death." At the same time, he stretched out his hand and slapped at Night Sorrow. The energy contained in this palm was clearly above the level of the Divine King. Its power was extremely terrifying. Lord Night Sorrow, be careful. Seeing the nameless Divine King suddenly unleash such a terrifying attack, Dragon Sparrow King, who was in the Clear Heaven Pagoda, immediately shouted, "Don't worry. With the divine talisman you gave me, this move can't hurt me." Night Sorrow had actually held back when he shot the 5 elements arrow. However, he knew that the nameless Divine King's attack was extremely terrifying. It was best not to take it head-on. He immediately used the speed talisman that Dragon Sparrow King had refined, increasing his speed by several times. Furthermore, he didn't hesitate to activate the Treastrimsa Battle Mystic technique. This time, he activated all of it without holding back at all. After Night Sorrow increased his strength, he also completely activated Tianyun Bao. In the attack just now, Night Sorrow had only used the state he had before fusing with the City Lord token. He hadn't completely unleashed his power. Now he had raised his strength to the maximum. Bang! Facing the nameless Divine King's palm, Night Sorrow shot out another heavenly cloud arrow. Boom! This heavenly cloud arrow collided with the nameless Divine King's palm, causing the void to explode again. That shocking power made the Shura Divine King and startled Divine King extremely terrified. The trembling from their souls made them not dare to continue staying in place. They fled to a safe area and watched from the sidelines. They didn't dare to continue attacking. The two of them knew that the current Night Sorrow was completely capable of killing them. I didn't see it. You're still holding back. But so what? All Heaven Divine Palm. Seeing Night Sorrow's strength increase to such a level in an instant, the nameless Divine King's expression changed. Then he raised his aura by another level. Suddenly he sent another palm toward Night Sorrow. This palm was one of the All-Heaven Ruler's ultimate techniques, the All-Heaven Divine Palm. All-Heaven Divine Palm? Facing the Divine King's ultimate technique, Night Sorrow's heart trembled as a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. He guessed that the Divine King in front of him was very likely the All-Heaven Ruler in disguise. If he really was the All-Heaven Ruler, then even with Tianyin Bao's protection, he definitely wouldn't be a match for him. Humph. I don't care if you're the ruler or not. I won't back down today. At this thought, Night Sorrow felt that if his opponent really was the All-Heaven Ruler, Ruler Tianyi wouldn't just sit by and watch. Facing the All-Heaven Divine Palm, he shot out another 5-elements arrow. This time, the power of the 5-element arrow was clearly several times stronger than the previous one. What's going on? The same arrow move, but the difference in power is so great. Facing Night Sorrow's 5-elements arrow again, the nameless Divine King was very surprised. He had been prepared for Night Sorrow's sudden increase in strength, but he hadn't expected him to be able to instantly increase his strength to this extent. With a loud boom, the two of them clashed and ended in a draw. Reveal your true face. While the 5-elements arrow and All-Heaven Divine Palm clashed, Night Sorrow, who had increased his speed, used the profound dragon roaming steps to close in and attack with the Samsara halberd. At this moment, Night Sorrow guessed that the Divine King in front of him was the All-Heaven Ruler in disguise and wanted to expose his identity. Face. What face? In the face of Night Sorrow's questioning, the nameless Divine King sneered and once again erupted in battle with Night Sorrow. His speed was even faster than Night Sorrow's. This wasn't the strength that the Divine King should have. In comparison, an expert like the Een Demon King was simply too weak to withstand a single blow. If it had been Night Sorrow in the past, he wouldn't have been a match for the nameless Divine King at all. However, after using the Nirvana Rebirth technique, his body's strength had increased once again, becoming more and more perfect. Chapter 28-27. Now that he had unleashed his full strength, everyone in the Clear Sky Pagoda was astonished. They understood that Night Sorrow hadn't unleashed his full strength when facing City Lord Luan Qianhe and the others. Now his Nirvana power was being displayed. Fire Phoenix, who understood how powerful this power was, immediately said excitedly, Lord Night Sorrow should be able to put up a fight. His Nirvana power is 10 times stronger than mine. Although Lord Night Sorrow hasn't advanced to the Divine King level, his strength should be able to crush the Divine King. If the Divine King in front of us isn't a god, he definitely won't be his match. Mo Yen, who hadn't spoken for a long time, also made his judgment. Divine King's dragon-locking formation. In the process of fighting against the Divine King, Night Sorrow had unleashed the power he had obtained after undergoing Nirvana. When he unleashed his full strength, he could already crush the Divine King. And during the process of fighting he had locked the Divine King within. The Divine King, who was fighting against Night Sorrow with all his strength, didn't have the time to tear through the defense of the sealed space. He could only sullenly fight against Night Sorrow. After fighting for a while, Night Sorrow discovered that this was the Divine King's weakness. Although he was very strong, his body didn't seem to be very strong. When fighting against Night Sorrow, although he could unleash powerful strength, he clearly couldn't withstand Night Sorrow's attacks. It didn't take long for him to change his appearance. As they fought, Night Sorrow discovered that his opponent's body was becoming smaller and smaller. Could you really be the ruler of all heaven in disguise? No, if you are the ruler of all heaven, you can't have such strength. You are the clone of the ruler of all heaven. Suddenly, Night Sorrow's mind came to a complete realization. The Divine King in front of him was very likely the clone of the ruler of all heaven. Only his clone could erupt with such strength. What nonsense are you talking about? All Heaven's sovereign avatar, who was still fighting Night Sorrow, immediately denied it when Night Sorrow discovered this secret. I'm not afraid that you won't admit it. Watch me beat your clone back to its original form. Night Sorrow didn't waste any more words. He continued to attack the All-Heaven Ruler's avatar. Bastard! Even this was discovered. I'm still hoping to use this clone to plunder some resources. The All-Heaven Ruler, who had been seen through by Night Sorrow, was very unhappy, but there was nothing he could do. Are you still not going to admit it? As Night Sorrow continued to attack, he chuckled when he saw how flustered All-Heaven's sovereign clone was. Because of the pressure, the All-Heaven Sovereign's clone was no longer as handsome as before. He was now short, and looked exactly the same as the All-Heaven Sovereign's true self. Night Sorrow. If you dare to expose my clone, then I'll kill you, even if I have to ignore Hegemen Tianya's warning. Now that his identity had been exposed, the All-Heaven Ruler's clone was furious. Now, it seemed that not only had his identity been exposed, but his clone was also very likely to be captured by Night Sorrow. If his clone was captured by Night Sorrow, he would lose all face in the deity world. As a sovereign, All-Heaven couldn't accept this at all. If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have targeted my family. Night Sorrow didn't take All-Heaven's threat to heart. He knew that All-Heaven didn't have the determination or ability to fight Hegemen Tianyi. However, he was very concerned about Chen Huang and King Yanwu's safety. He said coldly, I'll give you a chance. Release my 2 family members and give them sufficient compensation. Otherwise, you know the consequences. You dare to threaten me? No one has ever dared to speak to me like this. The All-Heaven Ruler's clone was furious at Night Sorrow's threat. He roared from the sealed space. Haha. Don't think too highly of yourself. If I remember correctly, I was there when you were threatened by Hegemen Tianyi. Night Sorrow laughed when he heard the All-Heaven Ruler's words. He was there when Hegemen Tianyi and Hegemen Voiceless Een warned All-Heaven, and the others. All-Heaven's words were simply too shameless. What does the matters between sovereigns have to do with an ant like you? All-Heaven said angrily after being exposed by Night Sorrow. Every time he encountered Night Sorrow, he would be at a disadvantage. Now he was starting to doubt his life. It's the ant you speak of that is controlling this clone of yours. I won't waste words with you. Release my family immediately and compensate them accordingly. Otherwise, prepare to lose your reputation and be targeted by Hegemen Tianyi. Night Sorrow said coldly. Don't think that just because you used your clone to deal with me, you're not going against Hegemen Tianyi and Hegemen Voiceless Yin's warning. As long as I expose this matter, you know what the consequences will be. What compensation do you want? Although the All-Heaven Ruler was furious, there was nothing he could do. Although his tone was unfriendly, he still chose to submit in the end. Night Sorrow smiled when he saw that All-Heaven had chosen to lower his head. Resources that can support the 2 of them to cultivate to the Divine King level. What? You're asking for too much. Why should I help you cultivate 2 Divine King levels? All-Heaven's face turned red when he heard Night Sorrow's words. He glared angrily. His main body in the ruler's residence was so angry that he almost attacked. However, when he thought of how terrifying Hegemen Tianyi and Hegemen Voiceless Een were, he didn't dare to do so. Because I think that way. Because you have no right to refute me. Night Sorrow, who had been tricked, said coldly. He didn't give All-Heaven a chance to refute at all. Although All-Heaven was angry when he heard Night Sorrow's words, he didn't have any right to show off. Although his tone was unpleasant, he still agreed. I'll do as you say. However, you can't expose that I have a clone. What? You still want to use this clone to do evil? Don't even think about it. Yi Shang replied without hesitation. Then he continued. I want your clone. If you have the ability, you can refine another one yourself. He didn't give All-Heaven a chance to retrieve his clone. You'll regret this. All-Heaven's clone, who had been silent for a while, said one last sentence. Then he completely disappeared from the array. He had self-destructed. Although this kind of self-destruction was powerful, he didn't target Night Sorrow. He had self-destructed. After that, Tran Heng and King Yawu were released from the ruler's residence. When Night Sorrow saw that Tran Heng and King Yawu weren't injured, he heaved a sigh of relief. Tears welled up in his eyes. After ascending from the lower realm to the deity realm, Night Sorrow and Night Moon's family had been targeted. Now they had completely established themselves in the deity realm. However, he would soon leave for the eternal supreme realm. Chapter 28:28. Martial nephew, what is your cultivation level now? What is your level in the divine world? After being released by the All-Heaven Sovereign Mansion, King Yawu saw Knight Sorrow and chatted with him for a while. He told him about how he had ascended, and how he had been captured. Then he asked about Knight Sorrow's strength. Knight Sorrow had deliberately restrained his aura, but he still gave people the feeling that he was like a dragon or a phoenix. He was very different from the feather gods who had just ascended. King Yawu and Tran Hung felt that it was difficult to breathe. Martial uncle. The cultivators in the divine world are divided into Feather God, High God, Sir God, Divine King, and Sovereign. Every rank is further divided into lower, middle, and upper. Now that you are a High God, if you are lucky, you should be able to become a Divine King soon. As Knight Sorrow explained, he used the power of merit to protect King Yawu and Tran Hung. Chen Huang immediately felt a bit better, and a gratified smile appeared on his face as he said, Knight Sorrow, you are a genius no matter where you go. How long has it been? You are already close to the peak of the divine world. Tran Hung knew that with Knight Sorrow's talent and foundation, he could fight across realms. Now that he had become a divine king, it was very significant. Haha, you are flattering me. The 7 sovereigns of the divine world are not simple. It is unlikely that a divine king can fight against them. Knight Sorrow smiled and said modestly, now that we have established ourselves in the divine world, I will take you to the immortal divine territory. Immortal divine territory? Upon hearing this name, Tran Hung and King Yawu did not understand. They had just arrived in the divine world, and before they could find out anything, they had been captured by the Luo Tian city governor. Seeing the confusion on the 2 seniors' faces, Yishang completely understood that they must be the same as him when he first arrived in the God realm, completely clueless about the world. Then, on the way back to the immortal divine territory, he explained everything to them. Then he began to talk about his journey. After listening to Knight Sorrow's explanation, Tran Hung nodded and sighed. It seems that there are battles everywhere. There is no pure land in this world. Maybe survival of the fittest is the rule of the world. Knight Shang was no longer worried about the battles in the God world, but he was still worried about the eternal sovereign realm. He didn't want the supremes over there to be unable to hold on, leading to the destruction of the God realm overnight. However, Yishang didn't mention the eternal supreme world to Emperor Chen and King Yawu. He was afraid they wouldn't be able to digest it. My lord, my lord. On the way back to the immortal domain, the Skycloud Bow's artifact spirit, Little Tian, suddenly spoke. Its strength had suddenly risen to the Divine Lord level. Little Tian, how did you do it? Knight Sorrow used his first godly soul to communicate with Tran Hung and King Yawu, while his second godly soul communicated with Little Tian. My lord, when your opponent self-destructed, all his energy was absorbed by Little Tian. Therefore, he advanced to the divine sovereign level. Little Tian replied and continued. Now that Little Tian controls Tianyun Bao, he can fight with the divine king. Good. Very good. When we face the divine king in the future, it will be 2 against 1. Our chances of victory will be much higher. Knight Sorrow was very pleased that Little Tian could improve so quickly. He secretly felt that the Luo Tian ruler had really helped him this time. He had found a way to help Little Tian improve his strength. If he could help Little Tian reach the same level as the Divine King, then the Divine King would no longer be a threat to Knight Sorrow. When they returned to the immortal divine realm, Knight Sorrow took Tran Hung and King Yawu in a circle. There were large-scale battles taking place in some places, but Knight Sorrow didn't stop them. When they returned to the City Lord Mansion, Knight Sorrow's wives were waiting in the living room. Yi Xiaoke was the most excited when he saw that Knight Sorrow had brought Tran Hung and King Yawu back unharmed. He felt very regretful that he hadn't been able to rescue the 2 seniors. However, Knight Sorrow explained to him that the Luo Tian ruler had let him see Tran Hung and King Yawu before letting him go. That was to lure Knight Sorrow over. The Luo Tian ruler's ultimate goal was to deal with him. Father, is the Luo Tian ruler no longer a match for you? Yi Xiaoke asked curiously when he heard Night Sorrow's explanation. Haha, you're overthinking it. I'm only a divine emperor. How could I possibly be a match for the Luo Tian ruler? Yi Shang smiled and said. It was his clone that was defeated. Defeated the Luo Tian ruler's clone? That's not easy. Lin Piamiao exclaimed when she heard Night Sorrow's words. She had already become a divine emperor. Although her bloodline power was heaven-defying, she could only fight against the divine king, who was the weakest of them all. You guys go ahead and catch up. We'll prepare the banquet. At this time, Sikong Chiyu opened her mouth and said. Then she went with Qing Ji and the others to prepare the banquet. Night Sorrow and the others chatted with Tran Heng and King Yewu. Before long, the entire Domain Master's manor was filled with the sound of toasting. 3 days and nights later, Night Sorrow gathered everyone again. Everyone, I'll be heading to the Cloud Fairy continent soon to support the major immortal sects. Then, I'll go to the Ninth Heaven Temple to find the recipe for the Heavenly Phoenix ever-changing elixir, for all of you whose bodies are damaged. Now, the resources in the Domain Master's manor are enough to support everyone's cultivation to the Divine Emperor level. You guys can cultivate in peace. My husband, you're leaving again. Sikong Chiyu walked up to Night Sorrow and asked, How are Jing Yun and Auntie Fei? They're fine. They're receiving the inheritance. Because they're fine, I didn't tell them to leave, Night Sorrow said with a smile. Sikong Chiyu asked, My husband, what do you think we should do with Auntie Fei? What do you mean? Night Sorrow asked curiously. Sai, forget it. Seeing Night Sorrow's reaction, Sikong Chiyu did not say anything and left. Then, Night Sorrow took Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King, who were in the Haotian Pagoda, to the Cloud Fairy continent. As for Mo Yen, he left him by Jin Ye's side to be Jin Ye's assistant. Now that there were 2 divine kings in the immortal divine realm, and Long Tianqing was cultivating there, it was no longer a force that could be dealt with by ordinary forces. Night Sorrow was more assured about this. He immediately went to the Tianyun school to check on the sect's situation. Xiao Tianxian had entrusted Tianyun Bao to him, so he was responsible for the safety of the Tianyun school. When he arrived at the Tianyun school, Night Sorrow found that there was no one around except for the Heaven Cloud Ladder and some weak disciples. Chapter 28-29. It turns out that all the disciples above the High God realm have joined the battle. It seems that this war is more tragic than I thought. The heavenly demons have invested more than I expected. Night Sorrow, who had lingered in Tianyun school for a while, felt a calling when he passed by the Sky Cloud staircase. However, there were no important figures in Tianyun school, so he didn't want to climb the Sky Cloud staircase. He flew towards the main battlefield of Soaring Heaven sect, hoping to meet some old friends as soon as possible. Night Sorrow flew towards Soaring Heaven sect with the 2 divine kings, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King, as well as Cowling. He was extremely far away, but he could still clearly sense the battle in the distance. At this time, the battle in Soaring Heaven sect was still fierce. The void above Soaring Heaven sect had been completely darkened, and the soul-devouring Yin wind was still there. The surrounding environment was a bit like Ethereal Mountain. Ethereal Mountain's tentacles have already reached into the God realm. Why haven't the 7 sovereigns taken action? Dragon Sparrow King, who had learned about the current distribution of forces in the God realm from Night Sorrow, immediately asked in confusion. Because many people have their own agendas. I think that even among the sovereigns, there may be heavenly demons. Therefore, only the heavenly demons. Most of the sovereigns won't take action until Soaring Heaven sect is attacked. After Night Sorrow stated his opinion, he began to analyze the specific reasons. The situation was complicated. Not every sovereign had the heart to save the world. They only cared about their own interests. For example, All Heaven Sovereign, Dark Moon Sovereign, and Illustrious Sovereign were all such people. As for Heavenly Buddha Sovereign and 7-Star Sovereign, their attitudes were not clear, and Night Sorrow had not contacted them. Therefore, in his opinion, only Sovereign Tian Yi and Sovereign Qing Yin cared about things from the perspective of the God realm. The 2 of them were very strong, especially Sovereign Tian Yi, who was an absolute powerhouse in the God realm. Because of this, he could see things that Night Sorrow and the others could not. There was obviously a reason why he did not take action in Soaring Heaven sect. Looks like the human heart is really unpredictable. Obviously, the forces of the God realm could easily crush the heavenly demon from Soaring Heaven sect, but the Divine King, Divine Monarch, and High Divinity of Cloud Celestial Continent had to deal with it themselves. The Blazing Phoenix King couldn't understand why the sovereigns hadn't made a move yet. She couldn't help but mock them. In response, Night Sorrow said, "Actually, although the sovereigns appear to be glorious, they are actually the most dangerous people in the God realm. As long as any one of them shows signs of collapsing, they will definitely be surrounded by the most terrifying attacks. Every step they take needs to be carefully considered. Lord Night Sorrow, you're still the kind-hearted one who cares for the common people." The Dragon Sparrow King didn't continue talking about the other rulers. Instead, he praised Night Sorrow. Ever since they had met, he had discovered that Night Sorrow was different from the others. How should I put it? I'm a cultivator of the force of virtue. Under such circumstances, I can't retreat. Moreover, killing the heavenly demon is a great benefit to me, so I'm not completely selfless. Night Sorrow explained as they continued to fly towards Soaring Heaven sect. Hearing this, the Dragon Sparrow King said with some envy, "Doesn't that mean you can infinitely increase your strength? Why don't you kill your way into the ethereal mountain range one day, and become a sovereign there?" Haha, I really haven't thought about this idea of yours before. After the Dragon Sparrow King said this, Night Sorrow thought about it seriously, and felt that this matter wasn't completely impossible. However, at this time he had already seen the Tianyun School's flag. He understood that he had arrived at the Tianyun School's residence. After saying a few words to the Dragon Sparrow King and the Blazing Phoenix King, Night Sorrow flew towards the city floating in the void. "Who's there?" Seeing the powerful aura of Night Sorrow flying over, some of the high divinities guarding the city immediately shouted. "Just say that Night Sorrow requests to see the Tianyun School's commander," Night Sorrow said confidently. "Night Sorrow? You're the former senior brother Night Sorrow?" Senior brother Night Sorrow, who won first place in the 7-sect Great Competition, and restored the prestige of our Tianyun School? One of the high divinities had some impression of the name Night Sorrow and immediately asked. "That's me," Night Sorrow replied. At this time, the high divinity who spoke said with a regretful expression, "Senior brother Night Sorrow, I'm afraid you won't be able to see our Tianyun School's commander." "What's going on?" Hearing this, Night Sorrow suddenly had an ominous feeling in his heart. Sect Master Yuan Tianji has died in battle. Our Tianyun School doesn't have an official commander at the moment. There are only 2 vice commanders, Elder Zhuangqing and Senior Brother Mu Baiyu. The high divinity's eyes dimmed. "Alright. I got it. Where are the 2 vice commanders now?" Night Sorrow nodded with mixed feelings. Originally, Xiao Tianxian had asked him to use Tianyun Bao to keep Yuan Tianji in check. Unexpectedly, Yuan Tianji had died in battle. He was a little emotional about Yuan Tianji's death at the hands of the extraterrestrial demon. He wasn't sure how to evaluate Yuan Tianji's life. "Senior brother, the 2 commanders are fighting at the front line. The person in charge of the situation in the city now is Elder Lu Qingyuan." The high divinity continued. Hearing the name Lu Qingyuan, Night Sorrow immediately said, "Take me to him." After entering the city, Night Sorrow scanned the city with his divine soul, and immediately sensed that Lu Qingyuan was the only Sir God in good condition in the city. The other 5 Sir Gods were all seriously injured. 2 of them had fought alongside Night Sorrow. He suddenly lamented in his heart, feeling that the war was too tragic. "Elder Lu, why are you in a daze?" When Night Sorrow entered Lu Qingyuan's mansion, he found him looking at a picture. His eyes were full of hesitation. Obviously, he had something on his mind. "You, Night Sorrow? Night Sorrow, it's you. It's really you." Lu Qingyuan was a little stunned when he was called. When he came back to his senses, he immediately gave Night Sorrow a hug. When he hugged Night Sorrow, his body kept trembling. "Elder Lu, what's going on? Quickly tell me the situation in front of us." Yuan Tianji had died in battle, and the Sir Gods of Tianyun School had all rushed to the battlefield. Night Sorrow knew that the situation in front of him was very difficult. But he needed to understand the situation in front of him before he could decide what to do. He was no longer the high divinity of the past. He could crush most of the divine kings. Moreover, there were two upper divine kings, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King, in the spatial artifact. They would definitely bring a great impact to the battle. Night Sorrow. There's no time. Quickly go and save Mubayu. A few days ago, she went deep into the hinterland and killed a king-level extraterrestrial demon, but she was surrounded by several divine kings. She hasn't sent back any news for 7 days. Chapter 28:30. No. That's not right. Night Sorrow. When this elder saw you, it was as if I had grasped at a life-saving straw. I forgot to consider your strength. After saying this, Lu Qingyuan suddenly sighed. When this war had just begun, Night Sorrow had only been at the high god realm. He glanced at Night Sorrow and couldn't see his cultivation level, so he immediately shook his head. He didn't believe that in just a few years, Night Sorrow had the ability to enter the Divine King's encirclement and save one of their own Divine Kings. In these years of war, Mubayu had already successfully advanced to the Divine King level, and this was all forced out by the extraterrestrial demons. Elder Lu, don't worry. Night Sorrow is now a high Divine Lord and can fight against the Divine King. Tell me, where is senior sister Mubayu? I'll go save her. Hearing the name Mubayu, Night Sorrow's heart immediately fluttered with a hint of charm. But then he revealed a look of respect. She was a woman, but she had carried the Tianyun school on her shoulders and fought against the extraterrestrial demons for so many years. Moreover, she had advanced from a divine lord to a divine king. This was no easy feat. In just a few years, you've already advanced to a high divine lord and are only a step away from the divine king? Is that Tianyun Bao still with you? When Lu Qingyuan heard that Night Sorrow's strength had advanced to a high divine lord, he was both shocked and pleasantly surprised. He knew that with Night Sorrow's talent as a high divine lord, it was no problem for him to fight against the divine king. If Tianyun Bao was still with him, then he was definitely not someone an ordinary divine king could fight against. He's still with me, and he's already evolved. Currently, I can fight against several divine kings. Elder Lu, tell me where senior sister Mubayu is. Night Sorrow didn't summon the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King. If that's the case, there's no time to lose. Take this map and go to the rescue. When Lu Qingyuan heard Night Sorrow's words, he immediately handed the map that he had been observing for several days to Night Sorrow and said, "This was sent back by Mubayu before he completely lost contact with us." At the same time, he passed Mubayu's soul lamp to Night Sorrow. Elder Lu, wait for me to rescue senior sister Mubayu, then we can chat. Night Sorrow took the painting and the soul lamp, and immediately left. After all, saving people was like putting out a fire. On the way, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King studied the picture in their hands. Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King didn't see anything, but Night Sorrow, who had activated the Sea Serpent Eye, saw that the picture in front of him was a mechanism array diagram. Could it be one of Soaring Heaven Sect's internal spirit arrays? Night Sorrow studied the spirit array for a while, and soon discovered that Soaring Heaven Sect was right in front of him. At this time, he discovered that the center of the battle was in Soaring Heaven Sect. At this time, some divine king was leading the divine monarchs and high gods of the Cloud Celestial continent to fight against the heavenly demons. Night Sorrow saw Tan Qingfeng and Zhuang Qing, the divine king. At this time, the two of them were fighting against the divine king of the heavenly demons, but neither of them was at a disadvantage, so he decided to sneak into the rear and rescue Mubayu before taking action. Senior sister Mubayu, why didn't she fight head-on, but sneak into the rear of the heavenly demons and launch a sneak attack? Is there something that Elder Lu doesn't know about? Seeing the battle in front of him, Night Sorrow felt that there was no need for Mubayu to sneak into the rear of the enemy. I wonder if there is a ruler. In the process of sneaking into the rear, Night Sorrow inevitably killed a few heavenly demons. However, they were all divine monarchs, so they didn't encounter the divine king. If they encountered the high gods, they didn't need to take action at all. It shouldn't be, right? Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Dragon Sparrow King immediately replied. If they encountered the ruler of the ethereal mountain during this operation, they would definitely still be here. Even if Night Sorrow had a ruler divine artifact in hand, he definitely wouldn't be a match for a ruler. I hope so, Night Sorrow said as he continued to sneak into the darkness. He felt that Mubayu must have a reason for sneaking into the rear of the enemy, but he couldn't figure it out at this time. If we go any deeper, I'm afraid there will be a fierce battle. When Night Sorrow sneaked into the area where the soul-devouring Een wind was the thickest from Soaring Heaven sect, he found that there was already a territory of darkness in front of him. Then let's fight. The battle outside is so fierce. If we suddenly take action, there shouldn't be many Divine King-level heavenly demons around. With the strength of the three of us, we should be able to deal with them all. Fire Phoenix King, who had been silent all this time, burst out with a strong fighting spirit in the clear heaven pagoda. Dragon Sparrow King also said, if we can't win, we'll run. With the ruler divine artifact, they definitely won't be able to stop us. I'm not afraid of what we will do. I'm just afraid that they will attack Senior Sister. Night Sorrow looked at the soul lamp in his hand and said. At this time, Mubayu was obviously still alive. That's a problem. Fire Phoenix King nodded and said with a frown. At this time, Dragon Sparrow King's eyes lit up and said, I have an idea. What idea? Tell me. Night Sorrow looked at Dragon Sparrow King. Fire Phoenix King also locked her eyes on him. Dragon Sparrow King looked at the two and said, anyway, Senior Night Sorrow can use the soul lamp to track Mubayu's location. Why don't the two of us make a big scene nearby and attract more Divine King, and create an opportunity for him? He knew that Night Sorrow had learned the tracking technique from Cao Ling. All right. Night Sorrow thought for a while, and felt that although doing so would put Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King in danger temporarily, it was still a way. It was better than rushing head-on. Therefore, Night Sorrow quietly separated from the two, and went in the direction of Mubayu. About 6 hours later, Night Sorrow sensed Mubayu's location. At this time, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King had already made their move. In the hinterland of the extraterrestrial demons, two upper-level Divine Kings suddenly sneak-attacked, and immediately killed the two lower-level Divine King. This also caused the extraterrestrial demons in the hinterland to be attracted over. When Night Sorrow arrived at Mubayu's location, there were only 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons left in front of him. At this time, Mubayu was locked in an array. The 4 otherworldly demon god kings were currently in human form, sitting at the 4 corners of the formation. They seemed to be casting a spell. Mubayu was not completely unconscious, but she was bound and could not resist at all. Not good. They are casting a spell, trying to summon something over. Seeing the situation in front of him, Night Sorrow immediately thought of the array diagram in his mind. The array diagram in his mind was the blueprint of the array in front of him. Night Sorrow directly took out Tianyan Bao, and let little Tian control Tianyan Bao to shoot arrows at the center of the array. He himself rushed towards one of the Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. He wanted to kill it immediately. Night Sorrow? Why are you here? At this time, Mubayu was originally in despair. When she saw Night Sorrow and Tianyan Bao, she immediately became excited. Chapter 28:31. What? They are actually summoning the sovereign-level extraterrestrial demons. Hearing Mubayu's words, Night Sorrow's heart skipped a beat. No wonder the battle outside was so intense and the Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons were still lingering behind. It turned out that they were brewing a huge storm. If the sovereign-level extraterrestrial demons were summoned, the entire Cloud Immortal continent would fall. Even if the sovereign of the heavenly realm intervened, that would be another story. Boom. Clang. After Mubayu spoke, Night Sorrow and Tianyan Bao's attacks were all blocked. There was an invisible layer of defense around the 4 Divine King and the summoning array. This layer of defense could easily block Night Sorrow and Tianyan Bao's attacks. Seeing Night Sorrow's attacks, Mubayu transmitted her voice. Use the array diagram to break the array. Otherwise, we won't stand a chance. I will be sacrificed soon. I will save you. Night Sorrow looked at Mubayu, who was trapped in the array. Her hair was disheveled, and she was in a sorry state. Moreover, her blood was being sucked away by the array. Her face was getting paler and paler, and her lips were cracked. I believe in you, Mubayu replied as she supported her godly domain. Originally, she had completely given up on resisting. I will do it. Night Sorrow was quite talented when it came to arrays. With the array diagram in hand, it wasn't difficult to figure out how to break the array. However, the current problem was that time was too tight. Just as Night Sorrow was researching, a blurry figure descended. As it absorbed Mubayu's blood, the blurry figure became clearer and clearer. Mubayu was also getting weaker and weaker. At this moment, the 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons at the 4 corners of the array each threw a large amount of darkness divine crystals into the array. After the ethereal mountain sect's dark divine crystals were thrown in, the dark energy contained in the array formation increased exponentially. The blurry figure that had been summoned opened his eyes and looked at Mubayu. With a hoarse voice, he said greedily, "This king loves beautiful blood food the most. You have done well. Shatter the entire god realm, Lord Ruler." The originally calm eyes of the 4 extraterritorial demons were now filled with intense killing intent. The surrounding soul-slaughtering wind became even more intense in an instant. The surrounding environment became worse and worse. It was almost like the ethereal mountain range. It seems like the ruler of the extraterrestrial demons can't adapt to the environment of the divine realm right away. We need to set up this place to suit him. Outside the array, Night Sorrow, who had already begun to break the array, muttered in his heart and continued to attack. Time was too tight for him to think about anything else. He didn't even have the time to look at Mubayu, who was in the array formation. At the same time, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King were fighting against 5 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. These extraterrestrial demons weren't very strong, but they had the advantage in numbers. Fire Phoenix King was slightly stronger. She fought against 3 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons alone. Dragon Sparrow King was slightly weaker, but he was still able to fight against 2 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. The battle was very intense, and they were evenly matched. However, before long, a large number of Divine Monarch-level extraterrestrial demons joined the battle. These Divine Monarchs were existences that Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King could kill with one strike. However, they had the advantage in numbers. Moreover, they used the array formation to sacrifice their own strength to the 5 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. Soon, Fire Phoenix King and Dragon Sparrow King felt that they couldn't hold on any longer. Why do I feel more and more violent fighting against these dark creatures? Dragon Sparrow King transmitted his voice to Fire Phoenix King. He felt that the violence in his heart was becoming more and more terrifying. It was as if he wanted to destroy the world. I will teach you the Calm Heart incantation. Fire Phoenix King also felt that her emotions were becoming more and more violent at the beginning. However, after using the Calm Heart incantation, she immediately calmed down. It is indeed useful. If not for your Calm Heart incantation, I am afraid that we would have been completely demonized after fighting for a while. Dragon Sparrow King said happily. At the same time, Dragon Sparrow King began to use the Divine Talisman. With the help of the Divine Talisman, his and Fire Phoenix King's speed increased by several times. After the increase in speed, the 2 of them, who were gradually unable to resist, were now able to retreat while fighting. Lord Night Sorrow, how is the situation on your side? We are no match for them, but we can still delay for some time. As time passed, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King gradually felt that they couldn't hold on any longer. This was because the extraterrestrial demons became stronger the more they fought. That kind of swelling rhythm of strength was not something they could resist. I don't know. Night Sorrow replied. At this moment, he was doing his best to break the array formation. His speed of breaking the array formation could not be said to be slow. Soon he broke a corner of the array formation. However, just as Night Sorrow was about to continue breaking the array formation, the 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons in the array formation all stood up. They attacked Night Sorrow. As for the illusory figure in the array formation, although he could not move, his body was becoming more and more corporeal. Gradually, his aura evolved from that of a divine monarch to that of a divine king. And his aura was still increasing. It would probably not take long for him to advance to the sovereign level. Night Sorrow thought to himself. If he allowed him to advance to the sovereign level, no matter if it was him, Mubayu, Fire Phoenix King, or Dragon Sparrow King, they would all be thrown here. The many divine king and divine monarchs in the Cloud Fairy continent would all be killed. At this moment, Mubayu, who was in the array formation, had completely lost the ability to transmit her voice. She looked to be in extreme pain. Senior Sister Mubayu, how are you? Night Sorrow, who had transmitted his voice to her, waited for a while but did not receive anything. He immediately understood the urgency of the situation. Holding the Samsara Heavenly Halberd, he activated the 33 Heavens Battle Mystic technique and faced the 4 Divine King, level extraterrestrial demons. Among these 4 extraterrestrial demons, 2 were middle-level Divine King, and 2 were high-level Divine King. Night Sorrow directly used the Samsara Heavenly Halberd to attack one of the middle-level Divine King, directly piercing through his body. However, this middle-level Divine King level extraterrestrial demon quickly reformed in the void. Together with the other 3 extraterrestrial demons, it once again charged toward Night Sorrow. The 4 Divine King level extraterrestrial demons attacked at the same time, and their might was very strong. In an instant, they suppressed Night Sorrow to the point that he did not even have a chance to attack. However, at this moment, Little Tian, who was controlling Tianyun Bao, shot 4 heavenly cloud arrows at the 4 extraterrestrial demons under Night Sorrow's instructions. The 4 heavenly cloud arrows were shot out, and they instantly shone brightly. A sovereign divine weapon with an artifact spirit? The few Divine King level extraterrestrial demons were astonished when they discovered that Tianyun Bao could actually attack on his own. Purify you filth. Little Tian, who had already advanced to the divine monarch realm, was no longer as ignorant as when he was just born. Facing the 4 Divine King level extraterrestrial demons, he roared. Chapter 2832. The 4 Divine King level extraterrestrial demons, who hadn't been frightened by the 4 heavenly cloud arrows, were scared out of their wits when they saw the 4 arrows of virtue. Night Sorrow's power of virtue was more effective against the extraterrestrial demons than the ruler divine weapon. Break. However, just as the 4 Divine King level extraterrestrial demons were suppressed by the heavenly cloud arrows and the arrows of virtue and were fleeing in all directions, the figure in the array suddenly roared a single word. That huge momentum directly shattered all 8 of Tianyun Bao's arrows. After the roar, the figure in the array instantly became much more blurry. All of you, quickly kill this god monarch ant in front of you. After shattering all 8 of the heavenly cloud Bao's arrows, it immediately let out a roar. Then, it shot an extremely dark energy at Tianyun Bao. Although Little Tian, who was controlling Tianyun Bao, tried its best to dodge, it was still covered by the dark energy. Lord Night Sorrow, I'm afraid Little Tian won't be able to use Tianyun Bao to help you for the time being. Little Tian immediately transmitted a message to Night Sorrow when Tianyun Bao was covered by the dark energy. Although Tianyun Bao was a ruler divine weapon, it was still suppressed by the ruler divine weapon. No worries, I'll help you break the seal. When Tianyun Bao was corroded by the ruler divine weapon's aura, Night Sorrow immediately used his power of virtue to surround Tianyun Bao. The effect is very good, but it won't be completely purified in a short time. Little Tian, who was controlling Tianyun Bao, realized that the power of virtue that Night Sorrow used could even purify the ruler divine weapon's dark energy. However, the speed was limited, and it was impossible to completely purify it in an instant. No worries, I'll do my best, Night Sorrow replied. Then, with the heavenly Samsara halberd in hand, he attacked the few Divine King level extraterrestrial demons. Recently, he had been relying too much on Tianyun Bao. Night Sorrow felt that his condition was not quite right. At this moment, Tianyun Bao was temporarily sealed, and his body immediately erupted with a strong fighting spirit. As his fighting spirit soared into the sky, his taboo spear pierced towards one of the divine kings. This time, Night Sorrow didn't even use the virtuous dragon locking array. He wanted to fight a real battle. Furthermore, he had to end the battle quickly. After all, Mubayu, Dragon Sparrow King, and Fire Phoenix King were all waiting for him to save them. A divine lord dares to fight us to the death. You overestimate yourself. Seeing Night Sorrow's taboo spear stabbing towards him, the extraterrestrial demon, who had transformed into a human form but looked extremely evil. There was a human-like disdain on his face. Then he opened his mouth and swallowed the heavenly samsara halberd. It was as if it wanted to swallow the heavenly samsara halberd. You want to swallow the taboo spear? You really don't know what's good for you. Night Sorrow roared in disdain when he saw that the extraterrestrial demon, who was at the level of a divine king, was going to fight him head-on. However, the extraterrestrial demon who chose to fight him head-on said arrogantly, I, the divine king, not only want to swallow your divine weapon, but I also want to swallow you directly. As he roared, his mouth became bigger and bigger, as if it had turned into a huge black hole. Swallow. I'll let you swallow me. Facing the extraterrestrial demon's black hole-like mouth, Night Sorrow charged in. Buzz. After a loud noise, Night Sorrow, who was wielding the heavenly samsara halberd, directly passed through the extraterrestrial demon's body. Although the opponent was a divine king, the heavenly samsara halberd was a half-step dominator divine weapon, and Night Sorrow was already a high-level divine lord. In terms of strength, he was not at a disadvantage at all against a mid-level divine king. Hey Amo, are you okay? Seeing Night Sorrow, who was wielding the heavenly samsara halberd, pass through Heimo's body, the other mid-level divine king immediately asked. The other two high-level divine king-level extraterrestrial demons charged toward Night Sorrow and attacked him. At this point, the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King were probably unable to hold on any longer, and asked for help from Night Sorrow again. Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to the Dragon Sparrow King. Lure them to me. After giving them directions, he continued to fight the two high-level divine king-level extraterrestrial demons. Night Sorrow, who was madly fighting against them, did not fall into a disadvantage even without Tianyin Bao's help. Soon he killed another high-level divine king-level extraterrestrial demon. What a dense amount of power of virtue! After killing two extraterrestrial demons in a row, Night Sorrow immediately absorbed a large amount of power of virtue. Although it was not enough to support his power of virtue to the divine king level, the increase in his strength was a very good supplement for him. Next up are the two of you. After digesting the power of virtue, Night Sorrow did not hesitate at all, and attacked the other two extraterrestrial demons. At this point, the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King were not far away. Moreover, Mubayu's condition was very bad, so he had to end the battle quickly. Lord Night Sorrow, I can continue attacking. At this moment, the power of virtue completely eliminated the power of darkness on Tianyin Bao. Little Tian immediately transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow. Very good. Cooperate with me and kill the high-level divine king-level extraterrestrial demon first. Night Sorrow used the profound heaven-roaming dragon steps and the taboo reincarnation spear at the same time. While exerting great pressure on the other party, he ordered Little Tian to shoot the arrow of virtue. This time, without the help of the sovereign-level extraterrestrial demon, the high-level divine king-level extraterrestrial demon was directly killed by Tianyin Bao's arrow of virtue. As for the last mid-level divine king-level extraterrestrial demon, it was even more powerless. It was easily dealt with by Night Sorrow. After dealing with the four divine king-level extraterrestrial demons, Night Sorrow used the array diagram to rescue Mubayu. Senior sister, how are you? Enter the spatial artifact to recuperate first. Mubayu's face was very pale, without a trace of blood. She looked as if she had been fished out of the water. I'm fine. Think of a way to completely destroy the array in front of us. Otherwise, this sovereign will completely descend. Mubayu, who was kept in the clear sky pagoda, was very weak. Cao Ling took care of her. However, before she completely fainted, she still transmitted a message to Night Sorrow. Completely destroy it? With the array diagram, it's not difficult. I wonder how senior sister Mubayu obtained this array diagram. With the array diagram in hand, Night Sorrow quickly destroyed the array, leaving only a portion of the descending sovereign-level extraterrestrial demon. At this moment, the sovereign-level extraterrestrial demon had just launched 2 attacks and was already unable to resist. Seeing that Night Sorrow had destroyed the summoning array, he immediately threatened, "Aunt, this sovereign is warning you. Don't make any moves. Otherwise, when my ethereal mountain army arrives, this sovereign will be the first to kill you. Let's talk about those things when you arrive." Night Sorrow completely ignored the threat and used the heavenly Samsara halberd and the power of virtue to completely eliminate it. Chapter 28:33. Their numbers were even more than the 4 god kings he had killed earlier added together. After absorbing the power of virtue, Night Sorrow felt that his own power of virtue was close to the level of a half-step divine king. At this moment, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King arrived. Seeing the few divine king-level extraterrestrial demons chasing after them, Night Sorrow's battle intent exploded. He used his power of virtue to purify the dark aura on Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King. Dominator Divine Weapon? Power of Virtue. The Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons chasing after Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King realized that something was wrong when they saw Night Sorrow and Tianyan Bao. Originally, their strength was not much stronger than Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King. They had to rely on the help of many divine lords to completely suppress them. Now, with the addition of Night Sorrow and the Dominator Divine Weapon, the situation was reversed instantly. We are no match for them. Retreat. Escape from here. Meet up with the army outside. Heichan, the leader of the Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons, immediately ordered when he saw that the situation was not right. Escape? Do you think you can escape? Night Sorrow, who was very thirsty for power of virtue, would not give them a chance to escape. With the heavenly Samsara halberd in his hand and the Tianyan Bao floating above his head, he started to chase after the extraterrestrial demons. Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King followed closely behind. Let's not catch up too quickly and let them escape. Wait until they are outside before attacking. Night Sorrow, who was using his movement technique, could actually catch up with the few Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons in front of him very quickly. However, he did not do so. Okay. Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King did not understand his intentions, but they still deliberately slowed down. Night Sorrow did not explain too much about this. His goal was naturally to cause a shock to the army of extraterrestrial demons outside. He wanted them to be defeated in panic. When the Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons charged out of the darkness, the first to be attacked was not the army of the Ethereal Mountain Sect, but the cultivators of the Cloud Celestial Continent. Seeing 5 Divine King-level heavenly demons rush out from beneath Soaring Heaven Sect, Tan Qingfeng and the others who were leading the Cloud Celestial Continent army to fight against these heavenly demons suddenly paled. He immediately ordered, "Retreat! The enemy has suddenly gained 5 Divine King. We are definitely no match for them. Tianyun school students, listen up. Retreat with the army." When the Divine King Zhuangqing saw that the situation wasn't right, he also gave the order. The Divine Kings of the other sects also chimed in. Something's not right. They seem to be running away. However, Tan Qingfeng and the others soon realized that something was amiss. When those extraterrestrial demons rushed out, they obviously had no intention of fighting. After Tan Qingfeng discovered this matter, he thought for a moment and said, "It's very likely that there's some kind of conspiracy behind it. Let's retreat." Good. Let's return to our stations and discuss this matter further. The Divine King Zhuangqing of Tianyan School also spoke. There's no need to retreat. Today we will completely resolve this disaster. At this moment, a voice rang out from the void. Although this voice wasn't very loud, it was enough for everyone present to hear. Night Sorrow? Everyone who heard the voice soon realized that the owner of the voice was Night Sorrow. The moment he saw Night Sorrow, Tan Qingfeng, who had a very good impression of him, suddenly brightened and said, "Good timing. Although he couldn't see through Night Sorrow's strength, the aura on his body still shocked Tan Qingfeng. The Divine King Zhuangqing's face immediately showed surprise, especially when he saw the two upper Divine Kings behind Night Sorrow. He said with joy, "We've held on for so long. Finally, we can see the light." They deliberately entered a stalemate with you. In fact, they were planning to summon the sovereign-level heavenly demons. About 10 of the heavenly demons occupying Soaring Heaven sect didn't participate in the battle outside. This was obviously very strange. After thinking for a moment, Night Sorrow judged their intentions. They definitely wanted to secretly summon a large number of sovereigns and wait for the right time to launch a fierce attack on the God realm. It was just a coincidence that Mu Baiyu stumbled upon their plot. And Night Sorrow completely killed this plot. If it weren't for Night Sorrow, Dragon Sparrow King, and Fire Phoenix King being strong enough to fight 3 against 9 without falling into a disadvantage, their initial plot would have succeeded. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Tan Qingfeng's face immediately changed and he said in shock, "There's such a thing. If they summoned a few sovereigns and attacked when the sovereigns of the God realm were careless, the consequences would be absolutely unimaginable. It's fine. Now their plot has been completely destroyed. We just need to close the door and beat the dogs." Night Sorrow explained and shouted, "Kill all the heavenly demons, don't leave a single one alive. Kill all the heavenly demons, don't leave a single one alive. Kill all the heavenly demons, don't leave a single one alive." With Night Sorrow's roar, the morale of the Cloud Fairy Continent's army rose. Most of the cultivators followed Night Sorrow's lead and roared. The heavenly demons, whose morale had already been shaken, were immediately suppressed. At this time, seeing that the situation was not right, Heichan immediately said coldly, "Even if we die, we will die on the path of devouring the cultivators of the God realm. Fight with me. I'll be destroyed with you." Realizing that Heichan was the leader of the Cloud Fairy Continent's plot, Night Sorrow immediately attacked with the heavenly Samsara halberd. "Night Sorrow, your strength has increased to such a level." Tan Qingfeng was shocked when he saw Night Sorrow attacking Heichan, who was at the level of the Divine King. Although Tan Qingfeng believed that Night Sorrow was not an ordinary person, and that he would become an all-powerful person sooner or later, he never expected that Night Sorrow could grow from a high god to such a level in such a short period of time. Amazing, really amazing. Zhuangqing, the Divine King, revealed a gratified smile on his face. Then he thought to himself, maybe the current Night Sorrow can climb the heavenly cloud stairway. The other Divine Kings were also shocked by Night Sorrow's bravery, especially some of the female cultivators among the Heaven Immortals. There were other elements in their eyes when they looked at him. Kill. Night Sorrow felt the attention of the seniors. However, the extraterrestrial demons had not been completely dealt with yet. He did not want to see unnecessary casualties, so he let Tianyan Bao attack while he fought bravely with the heavenly Samsara halberd. Moreover, he roared domineeringly. After being roared by Night Sorrow, some of the Cloud Fairy Continent's cultivators who were distracted immediately came back to their senses. He was fully focused on the battle. The extraterrestrial demons' momentum was damaged, and none of them could resist Night Sorrow, so they were quickly destroyed. The soul-devouring Yin wind that shrouded Soaring Heaven sect completely disappeared with the extraterrestrial demons. This long and drawn-out battle is over just like that? When the smoke of the battle dissipated, some of the cultivators present were a little stunned, feeling that the battle had ended too suddenly. Chapter 2834. Many people had participated in this battle with the determination to die. Night Sorrow had wiped out all the forces of the extraterrestrial demons after he had appeared. In the eyes of many cultivators of the Cloud Celestial Continent, he was like a savior. Before he had appeared, most of the cultivators had held the mentality of killing as many as they could. Ha ha ha. Night Sorrow, I didn't misjudge you. You are indeed not a fish in a pond. While many cultivators were still lamenting, the Tianqing Gate's Gate Master, Tan Qingfeng, came to his side and greeted him. "Gate Master Tan, you flatter me. It was my friend and I who appeared and broke the balance. This is Fire Phoenix King, and this is Dragon Sparrow King." Night Sorrow said politely and introduced Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King to Tan Qingfeng. Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King had been forced to come out of the Clear Sky Pagoda and join the battle. However, he did not want Tan Qingfeng and the others to treat them as his own soldiers. Hello, Divine King and Fire Phoenix King. I am the Tianqing Gate's Gate Master, Tan Qingfeng. May I know where you two are from? Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King were both Upper Divine King, so Tan Qingfeng greeted them very politely. We are from a secret small world. Fire Phoenix King did not know what to say. She did not want to talk about the Supreme Phoenix ancestor. Dragon Sparrow King answered. I see. It seems that Night Sorrow has been running around a lot these years. Tan Qingfeng said politely to the two of them, then looked at Night Sorrow and said, May I know what is your cultivation level now? Upper Divine Lord. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and replied. In fact, his power of virtue had already advanced to the level of a half-step Divine King. His own strength would also reach the half-step Divine King realm through cultivation. As Tan Qingfeng heard this, he was extremely shocked. He was well aware that Night Sorrow was a genius, but he never imagined that he would be able to contend against an otherworldly demon on the level of an Upper Divine King as an Upper Divine Lord. After a long period of silence, he still didn't say anything. At this moment, the Divine King Zhuangqing arrived with the Tianyan school students. He laughed and looked at Night Sorrow. Good. If you can defeat a Divine King when you're just a High Divine Sovereign, won't you be able to fight against a ruler when you reach the Divine King realm? Elder Zhuang, you flatter me. Night Sorrow humbly replied to Zhuangqing's words. Haha. Don't overpraise me. Don't overpraise me. The Divine King Zhuangqing smiled and continued. After fighting for so many years, I'm really not used to the sudden stop today. Let's go and have a drink. Okay. Night Sorrow nodded. After exchanging pleasantries with the Divine Kings of the other sects, he went to have a celebratory drink with the crowd. At the banquet, countless people proposed toasts. Night Sorrow didn't refuse anyone. Among them were some old friends. Some had participated in the Seven Sects tournament with Night Sorrow. However, compared to Yishang's cultivation, the gap between them and him was huge. Some were even stuck at the Divine Feather realm. Those who had a grudge against Night Sorrow all came over to propose toasts. When they saw how powerful he was now, they were afraid that he would pursue the matter of the past. In response, Yishang only smiled and brushed it off. In his opinion, the cultivators who had fought until now in the Cloud Celestial Continent were all heroes. After all, there were many other places in the Divine Realm where they could live. However, they had resolutely chosen to fight and didn't take a step back. This was a very rare quality. Everyone, now that the crisis in the Cloud Celestial Continent has been resolved, everyone can start to rebuild the Seven Sects. During this process, Night Sorrow will help everyone to protect the Cloud Celestial Continent and prevent others from invading. Night Sorrow, who was very respectful to the cultivators of the Cloud Celestial Continent, promised after 3 rounds of toasts. Haha. With little friend Yishang's words, Azure Peak was at ease. Tianqing Gate will be rebuilt as soon as possible. Although we lost many disciples this time, those who survived are all elites who have gone through the trials. The future is bright. In this war, the other Divine Kings of Tianqing Gate had all died in battle. Only Tan Qingfeng survived. However, with him around, Tianqing Gate didn't decline. Tianyan School will also start to rebuild. Although my Tianyan School doesn't have many disciples left, just like Tianqing Gate, the remaining ones are all elites who have gone through the battles. They will rise again very soon. Divine King Zhuangqing nodded confidently and continued. Night Sorrow, how is your Senior Mubayu's condition now? Senior Mubayu used too much blood and qi. However, she will completely recover after a few years of rest. Night Sorrow explained. Mubayu was recovering well in his Clear Sky Pagoda. What I mean is, let Mubayu be the new sect leader of the Tianyan School. What do you think? Now that there are only 2 Divine Kings left in the Tianyan School, she is the most suitable person to be the sect leader. Divine King Zhuangqing looked at Night Sorrow and asked for his opinion. After all, Night Sorrow used to be a part of the Tianyan School. Moreover, he controlled Tianyan Bao and had the intention of monitoring the Tianyan school. I think it is suitable, but I still need to ask for Senior Mu Baiyu's opinion. How about this? I will ask her to come out and we can discuss it. Night Sorrow nodded and called Mu Baiyu out from the clear sky pagoda. At this moment, Mu Baiyu was a little weak and pale. However, there was a trace of joy on her face. This time, when she was bound in the array, she was already in despair. Night Sorrow suddenly appeared and saved her. He even solved the problem of the entire Yunxian continent. It made her feel like she was dreaming. Baiyu. This time, I called you out to discuss and appoint you as the sect leader. Then I will announce it on the spot. What do you think? Divine King Zhuangqing asked as soon as Mu Baiyu came out. I am the sect leader? Hearing Divine King Zhuangqing's words, Mu Baiyu was a little startled at first. Then she said, Baiyu's experience is still shallow. I am not as suitable as Grand Elder Zhuang. It's fine. You are the pride of our Tianyan school's new generation of disciples. Moreover, your talent is much stronger than this Grand Elder's. You even have the potential to break through to the Dominator realm. In the future, under your leadership, the Tianyan school will definitely reach a higher level. Divine King Zhuangqing smiled and looked at Mu Baiyu with admiration. Since Grand Elder Zhuangqing is so fond of me, Baiyu will accept this heavy responsibility. Mu Baiyu thought about it for a moment and agreed. Then, the Divine King of the various major sects all came to congratulate her. After everyone finished congratulating her, Night Sorrow said, The Tianyan Bao in my hand was left behind by the Tianyan school's old sect leader, Xiao Tianxian. I will return it to the Tianyan school's new sect leader Mu Baiyu. After all, the Tianyan Bao belonged to the Tianyan school. Night Sorrow felt that he might as well return it to the Tianyan school, since he was about to leave the divine world and head to the eternal supreme world. As for the supreme grade materials, it was compensation for using the Tianyan Bao during this period of time. What? You're going to give away the Dominator artifact? Chapter 28:35. Giving away a sovereign artifact wasn't something an ordinary person could do. Tan Qingfeng wasn't the only one who was shocked. The people from the other sects also looked at Night Sorrow in shock. They couldn't understand his choice. Not even the sovereigns would be willing to give away their sovereign's artifacts. Junior brother Night Sorrow, a man's wealth is his own ruin. I can't protect Tianyan Bao right now. It's better for him to stay in your hands. Mu Baiyu, on the other hand, had a worried expression on his face. Although she was grateful for Night Sorrow's choice, she felt that she didn't have the strength to accept it. If Tianyan school obtained Tianyan Bao, and a sovereign set his sights on it, the consequences would be dire. Night Sorrow was under the protection of Sovereign Tianai and Sovereign Qingyin. Some sovereigns who wanted to make a move didn't dare to make a move. If it was Mu Baiyu, things would be different. Don't worry, I'll help you resolve your worries and give Tianyan Bao to you. Night Sorrow said. Giving the sovereign artifact to Mu Baiyu would be a disaster. However, everything would be different once little Tian grew up. Good. Since little friend Yishang has such intentions, this sect master agrees. The Divine King Zhuangqing smiled and said. Also, it said that the Sky Cloud Staircase is a sovereign artifact. However, no one has been able to climb it. Since you're willing to return Tianyan Bao, Tianyan School will give you another chance to climb the Sky Cloud Staircase. His tone was unquestionable. Night Sorrow and Mu Baiyu didn't refute him. The people from the other sects were very interested. They all headed to Tianyan School to watch Night Sorrow climb the Sky Cloud Staircase. This was Night Sorrow's third time ascending the Sky Cloud Staircase. The results of the previous 2 times were both record-setting. Standing in front of the Sky Cloud Staircase, Night Sorrow pondered for a moment before looking at Zhuangqing, the Divine King and Mu Baiyu. I'll give it a try. Good. Good luck. A smile appeared on Mu Baiyu's face. Thinking of the ridiculous things she had done in the past, she felt a little embarrassed. The Divine King Zhuangqing laughed and said, Night Sorrow, allowing you to ascend the Sky Cloud Stairs is Sect Master Xiao Tianxuan's idea. You don't have to hold back. Yes. Got it. Night Sorrow said as he flew to the sky cloud ladder and started climbing. He was now a high divine lord, and his virtue energy had reached the level of a half-step divine king. Climbing the sky cloud ladder once more was much easier. Not long after, he surpassed his previous result of more than 80,000 steps and continued climbing. When he reached 100,000 steps, Night Sorrow felt a little pressure. When he reached 106,000 step, he felt that it was difficult to move forward. Immediately, he activated the Trayastrimsa battle mystic technique. After activating it, he started climbing as if he was walking on flat ground. Amazing! This is something that has never happened before. Even Sect Master Xiao Tianxian didn't have such an easy time. If there are no accidents, he will definitely succeed and activate the Sky Cloud Staircase. Seeing Night Sorrow's performance, the Divine King Zhuangqing immediately praised. Night Sorrow's talent was visible to the naked eye. After the Divine King Zhuangqing finished speaking, the people from the other sects also sighed with emotion. Every one of them knew that Night Sorrow was a person with the potential to dominate. As long as he continued to grow, he would definitely become another giant in the divine realm. They were all very respectful to him, and no longer treated him as a junior. Under everyone's gaze, Night Sorrow had reached 107,537th step. He was very close to the 108,000th step. At this time, Night Sorrow felt that the pressure around him was not only from his strength, but also from his divine soul. Divine soul fusion. At this moment, Night Sorrow immediately fused his first and second divine souls together. After the fusion, his divine soul's strength was further strengthened, and climbing became easier again. Just like that, Night Sorrow continued until the last 3 steps. Only then did he feel the pressure again. After activating the power of merit, Night Sorrow continued climbing 2 more steps. In front of him, there was only the last step left. This step was the one that stopped Xiao Tianxian. Night Sorrow knew that it was not simple. After trying, he realized that even if he was at the peak of everything, he still could not climb up. This step gave him a feeling that he could not surpass it. What's going on? How can I go up? Success was right in front of him, and it gave him a feeling of a carp leaping over the dragon's gate, but it also seemed to be impeccable. That feeling was very strange. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow felt that the final test was definitely not about strength. It was very likely that it was about the state of mind. After trying a few times, he could not take the last step. He simply took out the resources and cultivated on the spot to consolidate his realm. What's going on? Why is he still cultivating on the top? Seeing Night Sorrow sitting there and cultivating peacefully for a month, the people watching below were puzzled and began to talk. Zhuangqing, the Divine King, and Mu Baiyu looked at each other but did not speak. Why is the last step repelling me so much? I can't take it no matter what. In the process of cultivation, Night Sorrow kept thinking about this question. At this moment Lil Tian said, Lord Night Sorrow, the problem might be with me. The sky cloud ladder might be repelling me, not you. Oh, there's such a thing? Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to Lil Tian. Of course there is. Didn't they say that whoever climbs the sky cloud ladder will be able to obtain it? It might have sensed my existence in your body, so it's repelling me. Lil Tian continued to explain. Ruler artifacts were different from other artifacts. Not only did they have their own consciousness, but they also had their own pride. Hearing Lil Tian's words, Night Sorrow felt that it made sense. He stopped cultivating and came down from the sky cloud ladder. He handed Tianyin Bao over to Mu Baiyu. Then he started climbing again. This time, he successfully reached the top of the sky cloud staircase. As soon as he reached the top of the sky cloud ladder, Night Sorrow saw an old man with a white beard sitting next to a chessboard. Little friend, you're here. The old man did not look at Night Sorrow behind him, but he opened his mouth to greet him. Yes, I'm here. The scene in front of him was not what he expected, but Night Sorrow still replied indifferently. Come and sit. The old man pointed at the stone bench opposite the chessboard and said, Okay. Night Sorrow, who was here to take things as they came, replied and sat directly opposite the old man. Let's play a game of chess. After Night Sorrow sat down, the old man immediately put away the chess pieces and gestured to Night Sorrow to make the first move. Then Night Sorrow will embarrass himself. That you're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.